% off the second. Visit specsavers.co.za to find your nearest store and ask for Clarity Pro today. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
Some crimes fade with time, but the truth, it never stays buried. From the makers of critically acclaimed drama comes Unforgotten Season 3. Detectives Cassie Stewart and Sunny Khan return to unravel another cold case. A missing boy, a hidden body, and secrets that refuse to die. When the past resurfaces, lives will change forever. Unforgotten Season 3, Monday to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Because justice has no expiration date.
Hey Zama, have you submitted our employer reconciliation declaration?
Oh no, not yet. I thought I'd leave it for next week.
If we comply, it makes it easier for our employees to get accurate tax assessments. It will be even faster now that SARS has the new EasyFile Employer version 8. Employers, make tax matters your priority number 1. Submit your annual employer reconciliation declaration by 31 May 2025. Your tax matters. So does your time. SARS, at your service.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you. As we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity, we bring you rich conversations and stories that shape the continent. Join us as we celebrate African pride, unity, and progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So at the third time of asking, we've now got a situation where the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana, presented South Africa's 2025 budget speech today, or 3.0, as many have been talking about. And of course, it's been touched on the news, but I think some of the key factors that you and I need to consider is this, right? What is the impact of that 0.5% budget VAT increase, right? So amongst them, this is key. The projected GDP growth for 2025 has been revised downwards from 1.9 to 1.4%. That's significant. So less growth. The budget deficit expected to widen from the projected initially 4.6 now to 4.8% of GDP. Public debt, gross debt now anticipated to stabilize at 77.4% of GDP in 2025 compared to 76%. There's more. We know that the VAT story, much discussed. They've eliminated the planned VAT increase. We know that one. But there's more social grants. The old age and disability grants will increase by 130 rands to 2,315 rands in April, and the child support grant will increase by 30 rands to 560 rands a month. The SRD grant, that's the social relief of distress, 370 rands, is extended to March of next year. And there's been allocations for education and health. They've been adjusted with specific reference to the changes regarding the budgets. And there's a whole lot more. Amongst them, I understand, I don't have the exact figure, but there was going to be about a 70 billion rand shortfall without the VAT increase that should have taken place. So they've allowed for that. There'll be a cut in expenditure by about 60 odd million rand, slightly more. We'll get to that just now. In fact, 69.4 billion. I've got that over 3 years. That is significant because that means less service delivery, isn't it? So let's get reaction. This is the National Pulse. My name's Ashraf Garda. Welcome to the show. Right, what's your pulse telling you now? Let's get a sense of what you're thinking. You can call in, not quite now, just now, 086 000 2032. When you do call, save that number. You can WhatsApp right away. Voice or text, 30 seconds, please, when you do that. 0614 104 107. And if you're tweeting, Do that right away. Hashtag the National Pulse. Right, we'll get reaction on a day where later on Donald Trump and Cyril Ramaphosa, the presidents of USA and South Africa, will be meeting. And we know now that their first meetup should take place around 5:30 South African time. So let's get reaction. First things first, as we move across the board to different people, we're going to move on now to a reaction from the MK Party. Visvan Reddy is with me. He's the MK Party's MP and national convener of a lobby group called People Against Petrol and Paraffin Price Increases. Visvan, appreciate your time and connecting with us here on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much. We've just come out of a meeting where we've heard the most shocking news. The news that we've heard from the minister is going to impact directly on all South Africans. It seems that the VAT increase has now been replaced by a fuel levy to recover the 70 billion rand. So what the minister has done is, in a very quiet, clandestine way, without consulting the people of this country, he has increased the fuel levy by 16 cents a litre for petrol and 15 cents a litre for diesel. This is effectively going to push the total fuel tax burden on every litre of petrol to over R6.30. Nearly, it's more than a third of the price that you'd pay at the pump. And what is this for? It's to plug a 75 billion rand budget shortfall created by corruption, waste, and mismanagement.
All right, so I hear that. So I hear that clearly. All right, Brisbane, he had to plug somewhere. So if you're not happy with the fuel levy increase, what should the Minister of Finance have done then?
He should have introduced a wealth tax. And this is not an austerity budget. What he has done over here is effectively found more money and not fixed the holes. So he's putting more money in a bucket where there's holes. He's not fixing the holes. Corruption, failing SOEs in this country is a major problem. Instead of dealing with that, he's now finding more money from hard-pressed citizens of this country who are overtaxed already. The fuel levies and fuel price increases, when you touch that, you touch the heartbeat of the country, because it affects the poorest of the poor the most. Everything goes up. The food, cost of public transport, cost of your school fees, everything goes up. It impacts on the poor. And we live in a country where poverty rates are so high that you're targeting the majority of the people. It's shocking what this minister has done today. Absolutely shocking.
All right.
Instead of taxing the rich and recovering money from the CR17 funders, Ramaphosa's government has chosen to target the easiest target, and that is the poor.
All right. I mean, I think we all hear you, but I mean, you and I both know there's one thing, saying something on air, but there's a reality. It's never going to happen in one day, right? And there's been a counter reaction to that. If you overtax the wealthy, you're already taxing them. You don't want to overtax them, but that's another conversation for another time. Just staying with what you're saying, in spite of the VAT, the fuel levy increase, they're already budgeting for a deficit of 69 billion anyway. 69 billion anyway. That means they are actually budgeting for a deficit, which is almost equal to that VAT increase that should have happened in the first place.
Absolutely. In fact, there's no difference. It's different. It's actually even worse now. Because remember, when the fuel prices go up, your bread prices, your school uniform, transports, etc., all is going to go up. So it seems to me that Treasury is desperate. The VAT increase that was rejected after public backlash. So now they're quietly punishing motorists. You know what has happened in the past? The easiest way to tax the country is through fuel levies, because you're left with no other alternative. We pay the highest in fuel taxes in Africa, as it is in this country.
I understand.
And our fuel prices is not.
Yeah, I understand. Besides what you're just explaining to me right now, there's also been a call to censure the Minister of Finance and to call for the resignation or the removal of the president. Tell me about that.
That is correct. We have asked as MK Party, we've tabled this, it's been accepted. It's coming before Parliament next week. We're calling for the finance minister to be fired. And if the president cannot fire him, because we believe he's totally incompetent, he even admitted today he's too old for the job. He cannot think out of the box. He cannot put the people of this country first. Then if the president is unable to do that, then we will move for a censure on the president himself. Because right now it is the president that can remove a cabinet minister. We are calling on the president to remove this finance minister because he is creating untold hardship. It's devastating what he has done. The impact is catastrophic for everyone.
I hear that. How much support have you got? I know it's early days, but I mean, you may have a sense of the mood of the parties in Parliament today. What sense of support do you have for this?
The sad thing is that the parties that are part of the GNU are parties that are here just because of the perks, the positions, and all of that. They're not here because of the people. So they don't care. That's the reason why they have this confidence. Where is Ramaphosa today? He is in America with John Steenhuisen. And I suspect he's massaging John Steenhuisen so that the DA will be able to support this
realistically,
budget
you know he was invited.
Parliament.
But I mean, Viswan, you know he was invited to America to meet the president. Did you actually suggest that he should have turned it down?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the timing, he had the choice to choose when he was supposed to go. The timing that he chose this week, when we're dealing with a budget that's affecting all our people in this country, was extremely ill-timed. And it tells you where his priorities lie. I mean, instead of going there as the head of state, he should have called his cabinet together and said, look, we need to relook at this thing because it's going to impact on the poorest of the poor in the country.
Okay.
Now, this is where we're going with this. Our people cannot be silent.
Okay,
we cannot be silent.
All right.
If we are silent, this government will continue to trample on our toes. We've got to stand up and we need to make our voices heard.
Okay.
We've done it before
Viswan.
as Papi. We'll do it at MK.
All right. Viswan Reddy from reflecting the MK party position here. Obviously disgruntled, very unhappy, number one. But number two, significantly called to censure the Minister of Finance. And number three, if the president doesn't accede to their request, then a call to have the president himself removed. Let's get further budget reaction. We chat to Dr. Azhar Jameen and to you as well right after this.
Do you want to study towards a tertiary qualification but need a flexible study schedule? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning qualifications offer just that. Our distance learning support is designed for your success. 2025 applications to Stadio's range of high-quality, affordable qualifications are now open. Distance learning qualifications are available in law, administration and management, commerce, teacher education, policing, law enforcement, humanities, and information technology. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
Extraordinary doesn't just happen. It's built, brick by digital brick. With every connection, every innovation, every leap forward. A cloud that scales with your vision. Security that earns your trust. AI that empowers smarter decisions. IoT that connects what truly matters. Connectivity that bridges every gap. We're not just building technology, we're building the future of South Africa. Stronger businesses, thriving communities, a nation connected, empowered, and ready to lead. Together, let's build the extraordinary. Start your journey at vodacombusiness.co.za. Vodacom Business. Further together.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matriek mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Right, so we're talking about what you need to buy and sell. What about this? A 38-year-old man named Tabang is a real Outsurance client who switched and now saves on an unbelievable 360 Rand a month on his 2018 Toyota Corolla 1.6. So he got that 363. That's more money in his pocket every month. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too get a quote today and see how much they will save you, or they could save you on your car insurance. Make today the day you switch and save with Outsurance. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP T's and C's online.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, so we've got one political party reaction. The MK party completely unhappy with what they called the delivery of the finance minister, completely disgruntled and unhappy about what he said and what he didn't say. Let's get another thought, this time not of a politician but an economist. The director and the chief economist of Econometrics is Dr. Azhar Jammine. Dr. Jammine, appreciate your time as always. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you and your listeners. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. So, of course, you look at some key pointers that helps you form an opinion about what came across with today's speech. What are they?
To be honest, I don't see any difference from what was generally expected, and that was that the government was going to just basically play around with some of the numbers that, to a certain extent, from what it had originally presented, and represent these without the requisite tax hikes that were originally threatened, most notably, of course, VAT. Essentially, the government has found a way of cutting back marginally on some expenditures in order to be able to fund the budget in the same way as with the same parameters as it was hoping to do previously, with a lower growth rate, implying that they have to somehow cut back expenditure a little more than previously without the tax revenue. They've clearly been able to find ways of cutting back on that expenditure for the moment. So there's no surprises whatsoever.
Well, look, I mean, at the time when there was this huge opposition to the 0.5 percentage point increase of the budget, the key factor for many people was like, okay, now that we've accepted that, we do not want to be compromised with budget cuts. But clearly, the budget cuts have happened. So where has he cut the budget to fit in with this new plan, number one? And I also understand there's been some areas of increases, including a fuel levy. There could be others as well. Are there any other areas where he's taken away from one, but increased revenue on the other side?
Well, the fuel levy is the obvious one. The others are all pretty much the same. If one looks at the detail, they've tried to find ways of justifying cutting back on wasteful expenditure. Some of the programs that they haven't been specific about where they've been. One would need to dig quite deeply, and I haven't been able to do so yet. But they've rejigged the numbers so that there's no massive increase in the borrowing requirement. We've got the increase in the fuel levy, which is no big deal, really. In fact, they should have considered that last time around when they were short of money in any case. And so I think the important thing is that they got the buy-in of all the other political parties within the GNU. And so from that point of view, it's, I suppose, satisfactory.
Okay, there's clearly opposition from parties outside the GNU, but you made the point they've got a buy-in. So where does one go from here? Meaning, do we now have a situation of a sense of stability that this can be implemented? Because I also say this at the same time where the growth projections have been reduced, so that's also problematic too, right?
Yes, the sense of stability has certainly been enhanced, but the problem that one has is exactly the same as what we've had right through for the last, I don't know how many years, is you have intentions to divert expenditure away from consumer spending towards investment spending and infrastructural spending. And yet, when time goes by and we look at the numbers that are released by the Reserve Bank on capital investment, one realizes that there's been an undershoot of capital spending compared with what had been intended, and we notice that a lot of the infrastructural programs just don't get off the ground. So we're in exactly the same position yet again. He expressed his intention to spend the infrastructural money, but we've got to wait and see, and one has to remain skeptical every time because we have not yet seen those intentions translating into real job creation and improved service delivery.
I mean, initially we spoke to the MK representative, and I mean, what he said is not something we've not heard before, which is, please go out and do a wealth tax the wealthy, as opposed to all of us. And they may see the fuel increase in many others as, again, a means of strangling those who can least afford it. What are your thoughts about the fact that, in fact, there's been no wealth tax as has been proposed?
The MK must realize that at the moment already 77.5% of all personal tax revenue is collected from 3% of the population, the wealthy. Now, do you want to squeeze them still further and force them to leave? And you'll have even less sources of additional revenue from that, Kay.
So you're saying that's a no-go. Is there, this of course is, now that, it's had 3 iterations, we now finally have the first budget of the Government of National Unity. How do you interpret that in terms of a reflection of the policy of multi-parties with different policies, varying policies, actually coming together to thresh out a deal?
Well, they have managed to thresh out a deal which should ensure stability. The real challenge will be, getting to the nitty-gritty of structural reforms, whether they can actually agree on them. And thus far, the results have been less than satisfactory. But it's still very early days. We'll have to wait to see how it goes on. I personally believe, though, that what we are likely to see is more and more pressure on the ANC from disparate ideologies. And the ANC's split in its own ideological makeup is going to be brought out into the open even more forcefully than before. And that is the challenge that the country faces in terms of its political future. And we don't know which way it's going to go between those who favor market-oriented solutions and those who favor government intervention at all times and increased regulation to try and achieve what is necessary.
As I talked to you, I see Edward Kieswetter, the SARS Commissioner, speaking to the media. There was lots of talk in the last few months to say if any area needs to be strengthened, it has got to be SARS, because they would directly assist you with the collecting of greater revenues, which will assist Treasury directly. Did anything come through in today's budget that suggested there's been a greater investment in SARS?
No, we kind of saw that in the second attempt and the first attempt, if I'm getting confused. But there was the intention in those to actually allocate more money to SARS. In this one, Stats SA was mentioned and the Department of Justice as getting additional funding to try and implement their processes more effectively. And when you talk about the wealth tax, I think where you can actually speak out more forcefully is for the government and for SARS to try and collect monies that are owed to it more effectively than before. And in that regard, there is a tremendous amount of wealth in the hands of a relatively few individuals, but there are very fancy schemes that still divert a lot of those funds to overseas destinations rather than to allow them to be sources of domestic revenue collection.
And that has got to be the big challenge. How do you stop these fancy schemes? Dr. Afzal Jammine, I'll leave it for you to think about that for now. Much appreciate your time today on the National Pulse. Thank you so much for that. Right, let's get to the news headlines. Here's on Dela Mbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has swapped the VAT increase for a hike in the fuel levy. Presenting his budget before Parliament in Cape Town, Godongwana says the fuel levy will be increased for the first time in 4 years by 16 cents per litre for petrol and 15 cents per litre for diesel. The South African Weather Services has issued a warning to residents in the Guardian Road region of the Western Cape about damaging gale force winds and high waves. And Sudan's army says it's liberated all of Khartoum state from the paramilitary rapid support forces. The move cements the army's control of central Sudan. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Not a bad start ahead of the main drive time this afternoon. Joburg first up, just a bit of a queue coming up the N3, Bedford View, 3 Galilees onto the N12 East. If you're trying to get up from Bedford View out to Boksburg, Benoni or the airport, there is a little bit of traffic work to do there. N1 slow up to New Road. Ahead of that, it moves quite nicely on the run through to Pretoria. Durban, the Bayhead Road might be one to avoid. Some really solid traffic there between the sort of Bluff area and the South Coast Road junction. So if you're going in or out of the Bluff area, maybe just just avoid Bayhead Road. It looks pretty heavily backed up. Looking okay around Hilton. There was big queues of traffic earlier today, big truck queues coming down to the truck stop, but that was all normalised on your way down to Durban. And Cape Town, finally, I think the sun's starting to shine through after a couple of wet days. Roads this afternoon, not too bad already, though, queuing out towards Hospital Bend on the N2. The N1 service road that takes you out towards the N7 link, that's quite slow going. And there is a crash just down by Rhodes Drive on the M3. So from Hospital Bend down towards Newlands, a little bit of extra pressure on that run through. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, in the midst of all the budget stories and reactions, we have not spoken about the obvious build-up to a Europa League final that's happening tonight.
And we're looking forward to it, but also a team that is looking forward to an interesting competition as Mamelodi Sundowns, who are continuing their push to become South Africa's most successful club on the continent when they host Egypt's Pyramids FC in the CAF Champions League final this Saturday. It's the second final appearance for Sundowns since their historic 2016 triumph, while Pyramids are making their debut in a continental final. And Sundowns forward Tashreeq Morris says that the current squad is determined to emulate the class of 2016 and bring the trophy back to Glorkop.
We have been told a lot about them and the way they did it, and the stories that we hear is fantastic, and we just have to, we take advice from the guys that was there.
Meanwhile, SuperSport United coach Andrea Rensa says that there's no time for self-pity after a costly 1-0 defeat to Orlando Pirates in the Betway Premiership yesterday. The result at the Peter Mokaba Stadium leaves Matsatsanza in danger of slipping into the promotion-relegation playoffs with just 2 matches remaining, despite being handed a lifeline earlier in the day after winning their case against Golden Arrows over the abandoned fixture. SuperSport failed to make it count against Pirates, and Arenza says that it's time for tough love as they fight for them to save this season.
That's going to be my job, to find a balance with calling it like it is, pointing out the mistakes, and keeping them going, keeping all the players in a positive frame of mind. And I think that's an easy job because it's what I do, it's what I believe I'm good at, and it's what rubs off on the players. And as long as we keep them in a positive frame of mind, I know we've got it in our locker to score goals. I know we've got it, and we've also got it in our locker, like we proved for 75, 76 minutes of the game, that we can keep opposition strikers away. And so we've got to find that balance in the next game.
In the meantime, Fawaz Bazadine was named Player of the Season at the Stellenbosch FC Annual Awards Gala last night. Currently in 3rd place, the club held the awards before their final Betway Premiership against Cape Town City on Saturday. Bazadine, who scored 7 goals and made 8 assists this season, also won the Players Player of the Season award. Ibrahim Jabbar was named Young Player of the Season, while goalkeeper Sage Stevens received the Sportsman of the Year accolade. Then all eyes will be on the Europa League final tonight between Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur, and Red Devils coach Ruben Amorim says that lifting the trophy won't erase the disappointing season that they've had.
A new future for me, I think, is not the case, but it's going to help us to finish the season. People will look at our team in a different way because winning a European title is really important. But again, nothing is going to change our season. Players know, everybody knows, the staff knows, the fans knows. But winning a European title can help us to have that feeling that can help us to build the future.
Meanwhile, Spurs' Ange Postecoglou says that winning the Europa League, though, is more important this year than qualifying for the Champions League.
As you said, great prize. The significance of Champions League qualification, what it means for every football club to get into the Champions League. It's there are the obvious benefits, but also you get the opportunity to play against the best in the continent. But the club's been in the Champions League before, hasn't won a trophy for a long time, so that's the most important bit.
And I find his comments very interesting, Ashraf. The fact that everyone obviously is speaking about the benefits of winning the Europa League final, right? You're going to be in the Champions League. But then the question that arises is that when your side is not doing as well as you would have hoped for this season, even when they advance to the Champions League,
I know you'll be happy to be competing in the competition, but it does not necessarily mean that you're going to do well. So why?
Yeah, but even if you, I think break it down into two. Even if you don't do well, the financial spin-off of being in the Champions League already means you do well. Number two is the fact that you're more attractive to other players who you want to sign. It's like you're playing in the Champions League, you have a project, a Champions League project, not a Europa League project. So that's number two. And number three, which I think is important, if you ask me what's the quality of both teams now, they're useless, right? But a lot can happen in 6 months. There are many examples of teams who end the season dismally, and 6 months later they completely rebuild, and they actually, I think Liverpool were in the Europa League last season, and in 1 year they jumped to win the league.
But did they have a dismal season the
Well,
same way Man United
if they didn't
did?
play if they didn't finish the top 5 or 4 in the Champions League last year, that means they had a dismal season last season, and in 1 year they jumped from wherever they were, 4th or 5th or 6th, to win the league title.
But Man United are dismal. They're closer to relegation.
I know, but what I'm trying to say is, if you're a manager, do you actually say, sorry, we don't want the position? You're going to grab it because you're in a boat that's sinking. You hold on to a lifeline, and that's a lifeline.
I think why I'm saying what I'm saying is based on what Ange is saying, that, yeah, I hear Champions League, but our main focus is actually just winning the Europa League title.
Well, maybe,
which is
but
more
we're talking
important
about
for them.
him.
Yeah.
That's Tottenham. They have different expiration.
Man
United are like
enough.
Chiefs. I mean, Chiefs even got a mention today at the budget speech. They're that important to South Africa. So Man United in England and Europe and the world are that important to the world to do well. The aspirations are very different. Europa League is a stepping stone. It's not the end.
Yeah. Well, in tennis, the French Open Women's Tournament gets underway this weekend with no clear favorite, a rare side after years of Iga Swiatek dominance. While Swiatek has claimed 4 Roland Garros titles in the last 5 years, she heads to Paris on the back of an unusual slump, having failed to reach a tour-level final since her French Open triumph last year. In contrast, Aryna Sabalenka has cemented her status as world number 1, and Italy's Yasmin Paolini is riding high after winning the Italian Open, her first WTA 1000 title, by beating Coco Gauff in the final. And with multiple contenders in strong form, the women's draw really promises plenty of drama at the Roland Garros. Meanwhile, 24-time Grand Slam winner Novak Djokovic says that he will continue to play without a coach after recently parting ways with Andy Murray. The high-profile partnership with the 3-time Grand Slam champion Murray lasted only 6 months, but Djokovic said that his respect for the Scot had only grown in that time, and Djokovic says that currently he's not desperate or in need of a coach. With that said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Perfect. Lots of countdown to some big things.
We're extending the sunshine on Mzansi's favorite adventure SUV with Ford Blue Sky offers. For just $849,999, a new Everest XLT could be yours. Glide through the burbs or power through nature's toughest with a 3.5-ton brake towing capacity. You'll even get 4x4 driver training through Ford Family Promise for free. Head to a Ford dealer and get your new Everest XLT for just $849,999. T&Cs apply.
The Red Devils want to wrap up the season with maximum points at Old Trafford.
Into the box, brilliant, absolutely fantastic, and Mason Mount strikes again. Brilliant stuff from Manchester United.
While the Villains want to conclude their good race with a victory.
Rodgers turns and sees a knee ball into it, Ollie Watkins, and he's touched it home. Ollie Watkins breaks the record. Number 75 for Watkins.
This is the bottom half versus top half Premier League clash. Catch Manchester United FC versus Aston Villa FC on Sunday 25 May at 4:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Every murder has a moment when it could have been stopped. Countdown to Murder takes you inside the chilling timeline from ordinary days to unthinkable crimes. Real stories, real people, and the final hours before everything fell apart. Countdown to Murder. Every second tells a story. Thursdays at 9 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Ultimate Value is opening an account with 34 benefits while getting her a treat. Ultimate Success is getting her the ballet shoes that you promised. With the 2,000 Rand balance booster, Ultimate Goals is living life on your own terms with a credit card with 0 monthly fees. Absa Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rand per month. Apply online now. Your story matters. ABSA, subject to affordability and scoring. T's and C's apply. ABSA is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Of course, we're going to get more budget speech reaction. Of course, we will count down to Donald Trump and Cyril Ramaphosa meeting up finally from 5:30 onwards and then having a closed session thereafter. And we will talk to AfriForum just now because they have now launched a court bid to have the Land Expropriation Act declared unconstitutional. That means there's an official court bid to that one there. But first things first, let's chat to Nomsa Mtlangu, the Senior Director of UJ Sport. And we talk about an important fundraiser by the university. Nomsa, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you for having me, and good afternoon to you and your listeners.
Okay, now I note with interest, it's not just a walk and it's not just a fundraiser, because it's called the Future Walks fundraiser, and there's a lot in a title that should tell us something. Tell me more.
So the walk is about us raising funds for our students, obviously walking with them to the future, but also integrating the community with the university, and most importantly, creating an active student life, fostering a sense of community and having fun together.
But what's the primary purpose of it ultimately?
The primary purpose is for us to raise funds for the missing middle. As you know, that we have students that are not poor enough to get government funding, but they are also not rich enough to afford tuition fees, books, and the like. So as the university, we saw it fit that we started to raise funds for these students, but to also ensure that all our students are taken care of, because as you know, there are some students that can't afford meals, and UJ has a meal assistance program so that our students would be full for them to be able to focus on their studies.
So tell me more about the nature of the fundraiser. That means, yes, I understand the missing middle. What's the expectation? How much is raised annually by this walk?
So last year we raised about 2.5 million. And over the period since we started, because this is the 6th time we are having the walk, we have raised about 9.8 million. So this money goes back to our students, which in essence, it goes back to the communities.
Okay, so you'd expect something similar, right? What impact does it also make in terms of the consciousness of, the student body, and academia within UJ in terms of positioning itself as a university that is able to try and solve its own problems through these, walks and get fit and getting out in the streets, but ultimately fundraising?
So UJ had a goal the past 3 years that we needed to raise 3 billion in 3 years, which we did. And now the new goal is to raise 5 billion over a period of 5 years. And as UJ Sport, our initiative includes the UJ Future Walk, but also it goes beyond raising funds. But it is also about a healthy nation. That is why we have partnered with Lucky Star, and obviously in partnership with the Heart and Stroke Foundation, to ensure that our people are conscious about their health and they take care of themselves.
Yeah. What is the expectation in terms of the turnout this time around?
Well, I just hope that the people that have bought the tickets will show up on Saturday. As you have felt today, the cold front started really bracing us, and we are expecting between 1,000 and 1,002 participants. And I would hope that the communities around will also come and join us, because it's also about fun and getting to know your community.
How, maybe even the cold weather may help, because, it's an early morning walk. I understand that, but ultimately they'll make a plan as opposed to extreme heat too, right? Let's talk then about the broader societal issue of the missing middle, right? How big a problem is it for this middle, too rich to be poor but too poor to be self-sufficient and to be able to assist them?
Yeah, I think as you, in the background, you were talking about the budget speech. I think South Africans are really struggling to afford a number of things, and education is one of them. So in essence, as an institution, but also as a community, it is our responsibility to ensure that we assist each other, because at the end of the day, if these students can't fund their way through university, we will then not have the professionals that we need to run the country.
Yeah, so that's an important point too. Is there any final point you wish to bring, maybe just some awareness or a link if people still want to join up and contribute in some way?
Yes, I would like to ask the communities to check on the UJ Sport social media pages. We have the link where people can buy tickets, but I would also call upon those that are around the university to just walk up to Bunting Road campus, buy their tickets on the day, and just join us, and also call upon communities to assist students, in essence, not only at UJ, but throughout the country.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Let's hope it really goes very, very well. Nomsa Matlangu, the Senior Director of UJ Sport, and this is for the upcoming weekend's big event, the UJ Future Walks fundraiser. It's a fundraiser, it's a walk, and it's a walk with the future in mind. And what could go wrong in that? Isn't it? All seems to be aligned. Well, what about AfriForum? They have a plan with a view to the future. Let's see what their plan is after this.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Reigning champions Bafana Style are in a jubilant mood closer to the end of the season. They are enjoying every moment on the summit, but Magesi FC have an agenda to cause an upset. This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Magesi FC on Sunday 18 May, streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC 1 at 4:30 p.m. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
In business, timing is everything. The right moment to expand, invest, or move forward won't wait. So why should you? With Standard Bank's business lending solutions, you get access to the funding you need when you need it. Get a business revolving loan for quick cash flow, a business term loan to scale up, a business credit card for day-to-day expenses, property finance to secure the perfect space, or commercial asset finance to invest in the right tools. Keep your business growing with our business lending solutions. Visit standardbank.co.za/business loans to apply. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
So we'll get further reaction on the budget speech coming up after 4 o'clock, and we'll take your calls as soon as we can, and certainly your voice notes. Keep them coming, by the way, but tweet it out too, right? And we'll get to that just now. In the meantime, while the presidents of South Africa and the USA are scheduled to meet now within a couple of hours' time, in fact, if it's almost 4 o'clock now, at 5:30, I understand, is when they'll meet first, which is 11:30 American time. While all that's happening, AfriForum, which in many ways may be central to some of the conversations that could well take place there, well, they've launched a court bid to have the Land Expropriation Act declared unconstitutional. Let's find out why they do so. It's something we've spoken about before, but they've now taken it a step further. With me is the CEO of AfriForum, Kali Clear. Kali, I appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Yes, thank you so much, Ashraf. It's great speaking to you.
Thank you. Right. So you've now taken, objection to a step further in terms of having a court challenge, right, to declare the Expropriation Act declared unconstitutional. Give it to me from your point of view. What do you find in the act that is unconstitutional?
Yes, maybe I can just say why is property rights important, and it's also important for everyone, even people that don't have property, because capital is wary, and if they just get the slightest of idea that property rights aren't respected, capital flees, and then we know like what happened in Zimbabwe happens. You have hyperinflation, joblessness, poverty growing. So in terms of what is in the act at the moment, it would bring us to a situation that capital would not invest to the detriment of us all. What are the issues there? In our court papers, we mentioned quite a number, but I think the most important issues there, if you look at section 12.3, that states that there can be expropriation with no compensation. And we know that Deputy President Paul Mashatile said no compensation is the same as expropriation without compensation. And then the problem is there. Many people say no, but the listed conditions when it can happen is quite clear. We have some problems with some of those conditions, but the biggest problem is it says, when it describes the conditions where it can happen, it says including but not limited to. So it means it's open-ended. Even a radical municipality that wants to expropriate without compensation can then think of their own reason. And then the other big part, 19.2, is a big problem because people say, well, you can go to court. What that section does is to say people can expropriate land and the expropriation can go ahead, or expropriation of any property, without there being an agreement on the specific amount of remuneration or what should be paid. And it means in practical terms you can then only go to court afterwards. So it means you would lose your property that you can get income from. You can now go to court, but we know, for instance, in Pretoria, if you now go into a disputed court case, you can only get a date in 2028.
Okay, point
case
yeah.
would take you minutes. So you have to fight with your own money. You lost your income, and you'll have to do it for 5 years. So the effect is people would then say, well, let me just take the low offer, and I think that is what people are scared of.
But this point about expropriation, can be effected without compensation, as opposed to will be affected without compensation. I mean, do you not see the difference between the two? Something you just mentioned before, but there is a difference.
Yeah. Yes, that is, of course, if you trust whoever is in charge, and you trust in every organ of state. There are people that would not behave in a radical and irresponsible manner. What this act also does, it allows many organs of state to expropriate. So you can have a corrupt, inefficient municipality somewhere where there are officials that says, we're going to do this. So it's giving too broad a number of people power. And if you're allowed to say you can, people will do what they can do. So I don't think that calms us down or gives people assurances if it is possible.
All right. Now we know, the Concord Challenge can be pretty long drawn, so we don't know how long that will take. But at the end of the line, you want something to happen. What for you would be your ideal goal to come out of the Concord Challenge?
Yes, no, I think there should be a change of the act. Many people say, well, it's common for countries to have an expropriation act, of course. What is not common is that you have zero compensation or no compensation. Only places that have that was Zimbabwe and Venezuela. So we know what happened there. So we would want the act to be changed, or the parts of it, if there are also a lot of inconsistencies. So the act should be redone or rewritten, but if not, then at least those very contentious clauses should be declared as unconstitutional. And I've mentioned two of them already earlier in the interview.
I take it you are confident that you would win this case?
Yes, hopefully. We've, of course, had experiences with, Judge Keatley in a case, that judge that was very negative towards us. But I think in terms of the vast majority of judges are people that I believe would see the facts and would give us an interpretation. But of course, there's also broader solutions needed. If we say capital is weary, the changing of the act is one thing. But we also need to temper the statements by politicians, because if you have people saying, well, our policy is expropriation without compensation, it doesn't matter what is written in the act, that will make capital flee. And I think hopefully today's discussion in the White House will bring about the point that one should not be irresponsible with regard to statements made by politicians.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned it, because I mean, outside then the constitutional challenge to the Expropriation Act, and let's let that run its course. Yes, you made the point that the presidents of South Africa and the USA are meeting today, and both now, AfriForum and Afrikaners are so central to those conversations, right? If you could, even at this 11th hour, if you could advise Donald Trump in a one-liner and advise Cyril Ramaphosa in a one-liner now, what would you tell them for today?
Well, I think in terms of the attitude, people should go into that meeting with an open mind to realize what the problems are and how it can be solved. I'm just scared, and it looks like it's going to be that way, that our delegation would go with a denial attitude to say, no, this is one big misinformation or misunderstanding. And I think that won't work. That would lead to a hardening of attitudes. So I think, I hope both would go there solution-driven. I think a solution is needed. But the solution is needed by identifying the real issues and getting compromises without any party being humiliated in the process.
Okay, because I think before you made the point as well that, any form of sanctions or withdrawals of incentives like tariffs around, say, for example, AGOA will harm the whole of South Africa, but certainly would harm many of the farmers directly, and that very much is your constituency, right? So therefore, in terms of negotiating a deal that would satisfy everybody, including the AfriForums of the world, what would that be?
Yes, no, I think specifically it would be a deal that shows respect for property rights, that shows respect for human rights, and getting South Africa not to get involved in these international conflicts. And that is what our approach has been all the time. We said South Africa as a country and a normal people should not be punished for the irresponsible behavior or policies of politicians. And that is what our message was over the many years, to say, put pressure on the politicians to not get to a point where the country would be harmed. Because we know, if you look at AGOA, it says a country needs to respect property rights and it needs to respect human rights. Irrespective of what AfriForum's intervention is, you might just have the US saying, okay, we're going to cut AGOA without saying anything. We would rather place the spotlight on the issues to say these things need to be addressed, and that is the way we hope to. Well, I don't think AGOA can be saved because of the USA has a new approach to go into agreements with individual countries. But we need a trade agreement that would be to the benefit of us all, a beneficial trade agreement. But we're not going to get that if property rights and human rights are not respected. And that is why we are fighting so hard for change in that regard. All
right, let's leave it at that. Kali Kriel, the CEO of AfriForum, lots considered there ahead of that meeting at the White House today. Interesting, the last point he made about don't get involved in international affairs. You can debate that issue specifically around Israel and Palestine, but at the same time, one may argue, is the USA itself not getting involved in international affairs, meaning South Africa, in terms of its positions and making decisions based upon South Africa's policies with other countries around the world. Think about that. Here's the news. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. And the top stories at 4, Finance Minister announces a hike in fuel levy and weather warning issued for the Western Cape. For SAFM News, I am Ondela Mbana, and a very good afternoon. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has swapped the VAT increase for a hike in the fuel levy. Presenting his budget before Parliament in Cape Town, Godongwana says the fuel levy will be increased for the first time in 4 years by 16 cents per litre for petrol and 15 cents per litre for diesel. In March, Godongwana's budget was rejected by political parties, including the DA and EFF, due to disagreements over the proposed VAT hike. Minister Godongwana says the latest increase in the fuel levy is necessary to increase revenue.
To this end, the budget proposes an inflation-linked increase to the general fuel levy. For the 2025-26 fiscal year, this will new tax proposal that I'm announcing. This is the first fuel levy increase in 3 years. It means from the 4th of June this year, the general fuel levy will increase by 16 cents per litre and 15 cents per litre of diesel. Unfortunately, this tax measure alone will not close the fiscal gap over the medium term. The 2026 budget will therefore need to propose new tax measures aimed at raising 20 billion rand.
Treasury has also lowered its growth forecast from 1.9% to 1.4% this year. It attributes its downward revision to domestic economic weaknesses, including logistical constraints and high borrowing costs, further exacerbated by global headwinds due to geopolitical tensions. Godongwana says this budget aims to stimulate growth through R1 trillion of investment into infrastructure over the next 3 years.
As a result, we now estimate real GDP to grow at 1.4% in 2025. This is lower than the 1.9% we projected in March. Over the next 2 years, we project real GDP growth to rise moderately to 1.8% in 2028, 1.6% in 2026, and 1.8% in 2027. Looking further ahead, the risks to the outlook remain elevated. These include the worsening global outlook, weaker than expected growth in the fourth quarter of 2024, the persistence of logistics constraints, and higher borrowing costs.
The South African Weather Services has issued a warning to residents in the Guardian Route region of the Western Cape about damaging gale force winds and high waves. A cold front has made landfall in the province. Wave heights exceeding 4 meters are expected along the coast. The service says these conditions will continue until tomorrow. They've cautioned that small vessels and personal watercraft should remain on land until the weather improves. KwaZulu-Natal residents are urged to be vigilant as severe thunderstorms and strong damaging winds affect various parts of the province. The Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs says many key areas, including the Durban Metro and parts of the Midlands, were impacted by severe thunderstorms this morning. The Weather Service has issued a level 2 weather warning. COGTA provincial spokesperson is Senzelwe Mzila.
The MEC has also called for communities within the areas of Abaqulusi, Danhausa, eDumbe, eMadlangeni, eNdumeni, Big 5 Hlabisa, eThekwini, KwaDukuza, Mandeni, Umfolozi, Breinkonyeni, Umdoni, Umlalazi, Newcastle and Ngutu to be cautious as a level 2 weather warning remains in effect in these areas for damaging winds. These winds are expected to disrupt roads as the crosswinds could lead to fallen objects that could severely impede traffic flow and create hazardous driving conditions. In addition to the wind warning, disaster management teams are responding to a felt fire.
Sudan's army says it's liberated all of Khartoum state from the paramilitary rapid support forces. The move cements the army's control of central Sudan. The BBC's Barbara Platt-Usher has the details.
On Monday, the army launched an offensive to recapture these areas and now says it has done so. The center of the conflict is shifting to the RSF stronghold of Darfur in the west and to the southern Kordofan region. The army is battling to retake key cities in several states of Kordofan. That would provide a strategic access route to the embattled Darfur city of El Fasher.
Recapping the top story, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has swapped the VAT increase for a hike in the fuel levy. I am Wandile Mbana for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports this hour, Europa League showdown takes centre stage tonight. Jordan to return to Rugby World Cup in new role, and Archer out of ODI series with thumb injury. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. On the roads, we take you to Galuli's interchange. Looks like a broken down vehicle coming off the N3 onto the N12. So there's pressure coming up from Germiston heading north, and delays coming down from Alex on the southbound side. The N3 both ways into Galuli's very heavy. Greyston Drive, pretty heavy backlogs coming out of Sandton as well from the Ravonia Road side. It's a long trip out through Catherine and down across the Mike 1 Highway. N1 up through Midrand, busy as far as New Road. After that clears up quite nicely. Capital City, Pretoria looking okay as well. If you're on your way to Durban, the big truck backlog that we had at Hilton earlier today has all been cleared. In fact, the other side of Pietermaritzburg down into Durban, it's looking pretty good. Durban having some light sort of traffic volumes at the moment. That's very interesting. And Cape Town, still a bit of on-off rain to contend with and just generally busy conditions. Jam-packed on the run to Hospital Bend. Slow going down the M3 as far as Rhodes Drive. And then a crash a little bit further down at Bishop's Court, causing a secondary delay on that section of the M3 towards Wynberg Hill. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
The land is their legacy, but in season 3 of Yellowstone, that legacy is under fire. Kevin Costner returns as John Dutton, fighting to protect his ranch, his family, and everything that can't be bought. More enemies, deeper betrayal, and the battle for the West, it's only just begun. Yellowstone Season 3. This land was won with blood, and it'll take more to keep it. Saturdays at 9:30. Starts 24 May, only on S3. Open up.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve. Proudly brought to you by Volvo. It's safe to be brave with Volvo.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and the vibrant sounds of Africa. Music that moves the soul. This is SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Are you going to be doing as I would be doing? I mean, besides being on air, the real meat of the conversation coming up today, would you be watching that? Keeping in mind at 5:30 this evening or this afternoon, Ramaphosa Trump will meet up, but like 4 cameras, hello, smiling, bit of a public chat, and that's really what we'll see. Then they go behind closed doors for a 1-hour conversation over lunch or over a meal. We don't see that. That's what I think. And then they come out again and then face the media at the White House, which could be quite a spectacle. Are you planning to watch all of that? I certainly am. I'm going to be in fact, I'm going to a pedal launch, but my plan is I certainly want to watch that from around 6:45 onwards, beyond that. Now, that's the one thing. The second part is when we had this conversation about the budget and the mass opposition to any VAT increase, right? One of the things that most people felt that not only must there be no VAT increase, which there isn't, but it must not be accompanied by budget cuts, meaning budget cuts will compromise where we are in terms of service delivery. Well, what happened? They're already planning, I understand from the minister, about a 69 billion rand budget cut over the next 3 years. So in fact, they are. But at the same time, there's an increase in the fuel levy, which somehow compensates them. So I wonder how different organizations react to that. Now, we've had conversations already before. You can listen to them again via podcast. But let's get further reaction from the organization of People Against Budget Cuts. With me is Ali Chikte, the member of People Against Budget Cuts. Appreciate your time and thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Right. So what do you feel? I mean, you had a position beforehand. The budget was then delivered. What do you and your organization feel now?
Yeah, so statements in a tangible way. So while there are some positive developments, there's a withdrawal of harsh austerity measures. The budget continues a broader pattern of underinvestment in public services that people rely on. And following on from Enoch Godongwana's admission that austerity has failed, Budget 3.0 signals an end to the harsh austerity measures that have been in place since 2020, with most department baselines increasing in line with inflation, with the notable exception being higher education, which faces a 4 billion rand cut in real terms. Overall increases, however, do not mean that the public sector is saved. The past 5 years have hollowed out critical public services such as education and healthcare, leaving over 100,000 funded posts vacant, with many more removed from the departmental organograms. And increasing,
yeah, and therefore, I mean, if you had to pronounce on the overall budget, as you would know, it always is a balancing act, right? What would you pronounce on in terms of what you saw? I mean, just one line that reflects your opinion of yourself and your organization.
We welcome that there's no increase in VAT, and there is a removal of harsh austerity measures. But we also believe that this will not alleviate existing pressure within the public sector. This budget fails to address the damage caused by austerity measures and will not reverse the many years of budget cuts that we have had.
What would you like to have seen differently? Again, keeping in mind the minister does have a challenging balancing act at the best of times.
Right. So we would have liked to have seen an enhancement of the progressivity of the tax system. So this does not mean VAT hikes. This means looking at things like a wealth tax, removing and reducing tax breaks on the rich and the wealthy. But beyond this, we would also have wanted to see significant increases to frontline posts, mainly in healthcare and education, as well as the introduction of progressive reforms that could play an important role in transforming people's economic realities, such as the introduction of a basic income grant. Obviously, there is this balancing act, but there are a range of progressive revenue-raising alternatives that can be seriously considered in making sure that we address critical issues around mass unemployment, around intractable inequality, and around starvation and poverty.
I mean, in terms of social grants, there's been, just minimal or no increases for a couple of years now. On the one end, there's been this fuel levy, and I see Thuli Madonsela, Prof. Madonsela, making the point that the fuel levy will certainly again burden, those that use public transport indirectly the most anyway, right? What do you make of that? Meaning that if you're looking at the most vulnerable, does this in any way address and empathize with the needs of the most vulnerable in South African society?
Yeah, so the fuel levy is very damaging to people's monthly budgets. But beyond the fuel levy, we also need to look at what is happening to additions to passenger rail, to PRASA. The minister announced significant decreases in those allocations, while still admitting that many people spend up to half their monthly salary on transport costs alone. So if there's no real investment in something like a mass public transport system that will create jobs, but will also reduce the cost of living, then we will still continue to see the real impact that it has on people in their daily, monthly budgets.
Okay, just the last thing. One thing I think most people look for is actually meaningful growth. In terms of the growth rate, there's a forecast downwards, which means there's less expectation of real growth. Is there anything in terms of the budget allocations that suggests that we could see a turnaround in terms of actual growth down the line?
I'm not that optimistic. What we are seeing is an emphasis on Operation Vulindlela, an expansion of Operation Vulindlela into phase 2. Since the introduction of Operation Vulindlela, there's actually been a decrease in the number of people employed. So between 2020 and 2025, the number of people employed has gone down. despite the successes of Operation Vulindlela being widely celebrated, such as 500 billion rand of investment being unlocked. But if this 500 billion rand of investment is not directly transformed into real jobs that we can see in the quarterly report, labor survey, then it's not enough. This economic growth is insufficient to deal with the problems of mass unemployment.
Okay, that's where we can lead. Aliyah Chikte was the member of People Against Budget Cuts. So that's their point of view. We'll get further reaction from different political parties and persuasions over the next hour or so. But it also means that we want to hear what you have to say. And we'll do that right after this.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chantel Rosabelle and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up.
The Red Devils want to wrap up the season with maximum points at Old Trafford.
Well, into the box, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And Mason Mount strikes again. Brilliant stuff from Manchester United.
While the Villains want to conclude their good race with a victory.
Rodgers turns and sees a knee ball into an Ollie Watkins, and he's touched it home. Ollie Watkins breaks the record. Number 75 for Watkins.
This is the bottom half versus top half Premier League clash. Catch Manchester United FC versus Aston Villa FC on Sunday 25 May at 4:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You are listening to Night Talk.
Taxi violence in South Africa has a long history. Why has violence and the taxi industry in South Africa become so inextricably tied?
And it's a problem that has been happening, at least since the late 80s when the industry was deregulated. And in actual fact, I would like to just regard it as an industry that has deep historical roots in terms of the violence, dates back to the apartheid era, and also one of the things that I've recognized through my research over the years is actually what I call the state's failure to integrate the industry into the formal transport system, which continues to operate under stiff competition between taxi associations.
Dr. Siyabulela Fobosi, who's a senior researcher at Fort Hare University.
Night Talk, Monday to Thursdays, 10 to midnight. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
In fact, let's get the response from the EFF now with Chumani Matiwane, who's an EFF MP. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Adrian.
Thank you.
Ashraf.
Yeah, got it right. Okay.
Ashraf and your listeners.
Much appreciated. Right. What's your reaction to the budget speech delivered today by the Minister of Finance?
The economic freedom fighters maintain its stance that the Minister of Finance was going to deliver an austerity budget. And he did exactly that. Delivered an austerity budget with a massive cutting of spending to frontline services in education, health, defense, and security. If you look at the budget that was tabled in March, there is a drop in spending of about 28 billion rands of non-interest bearing that has been announced in this new budget. So it will not improve the outlook of South Africa or nor improve the lives of the poor and the working class, as the cost of living will still remain high, because instead of looking at the revenue sources that have been proposed by other parties like the EFF, that is increasing the corporate tax, introducing a wealth tax, they have chosen to introduce increase levies on fuel, which is, it makes no difference if we are going to move away from that, which was going to affect most products which are food.
Okay.
And now we are going to increase fuel.
But I mean, I know your call for.
Affects,
all right, I'm aware of the EFF call for increase in corporate tax or wealth tax. We had a chat with Dr. Azar Jamin earlier on. He's an economist. He made the point that whether it's understandable, the reality is you can only tax you can't tax the wealthy beyond a certain point. Meaning, after a while, it makes it less attractive for them to invest in the country. I mean, do you get that?
The stimulus package that the EFF proposed included surpluses that are in the unemployment insurance fund and the compensation fund. Another source of revenue that the EFF proposed was that the Independent Development Corporation also invest about 120 billion into stimulating the economy. So there are other ways of augmenting the budget or stimulating growth without looking at or listening to what the markets are saying, because we need to create a domestic demand. I think the issue with the tariffs should have taught us a lesson that if we do not have a domestic demand, then we will be subject to the abuse. Hence today, the budget was tabled in Parliament and the president was in America to speak to Donald Trump when we had a crisis in South Africa. So that it just points to the challenges that we're facing as a country. And there are no solutions that the GNU is coming with. We're just diving deep into the crisis.
Okay, I'm certainly quoting your leader, the commander-in-chief of the EFF, Julius Malema, saying the ANC has no plan to grow the economy or create jobs. This is an austerity budget and we reject it. We will not support any budget that cuts funding for education, health, or infrastructure. I mean, clearly that's very aligned to what you've just told us, right? The question really is, are you surprised at that? Meaning that, I know you've given other proposals, but certainly from a government point of view, and you're not part of it, they would see things differently in terms of the short-term priorities. And in the absence of real meaningful growth, where does the additional monies come from outside your issues of the wealth tax and some other things you've suggested?
Yes, if you look at fruitless and wasteful expenditure over the past 3 financial years, it amounts to about 16 billion rands. 16 billion rands is about 60% of the money that the government was trying to get through VAT. So if you look at the corruption and the inefficiencies in government, if you can tighten the screws in government, that's where you would be able to get a lot of money, because a lot of money goes to waste, which is supposed to go for service related delivery. It's about 190 billion rands over 3 years that has been lost to irregular expenditure.
One of the things that's been reported, what's been reported on now is that the loss of income from the original proposed 0.5 percentage point VAT increase has been compensated for by the increase in the fuel levy. Do you see it as that, one replacing the other? And if so, what do you feel about it?
Yes, we see it as that, and it also shows that there is no interest to protect the poor from the high cost of living, because what was coupled with the VAT increase was to add more foodstuffs to the zero-rated. Now they've taken away even that of adding more foodstuff to zero-rated or to zero-rated, which shows that they had no intentions of alleviating the pressures that a majority of South Africans are currently facing.
Okay, just going forward then, how do you see yourself again with very poor growth and projections for growth now being even reduced further, and therefore revenue coming out of it even less than as expected? How do you see then the road of the EFF in this coming year?
As the EFF will continue to push for a change in how we view budgeting or how we view the fiscal policy, because we cannot continue in the trajectory that we are currently in. Even the finance minister admitted to that. That in 2026 we have to look at the fiscal policy to try to get additional sources of revenue, because currently with what we are facing as a nation, there will be no improvement, there will be no prospects of growth in the near future if we are going to continue with the focusing on budget surplus or servicing debt to the detriment of essential services like education. If 22 cents of every 1 rand goes towards the servicing of debt, which is more than the money that is spent on education, on health, we say that will only lead to social debt. And you do not have to make those choices as a nation where a doctor has to make a choice between giving a vaccination to a child or immunization to a child, or not giving the immunization to a child because government has cut spending. So it is a crisis that we are currently facing in South Africa. So the EFF proposes that the government must stimulate the economy. That is the only way we can grow. You can never grow an economy through austerity. Nowhere in the world has austerity given positive results.
And clearly you don't see any stimulation. And you don't see any stimulation now. Let's leave it at that. Shumani Matiwane, the EFF's MP, responding to today's budget speech delivered by the Minister of Finance. Let's get your thoughts after this.
Thank you.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
We'll get certainly more reaction as well in the next 15-20 minutes or so. Let's see if I can pick out some of the comments. Many people have tried to send us a WhatsApp, and here's one about the conversation we had with the AfriForum earlier.
Hi, Ashraf, the listeners. It's Wilson here from East London. You know, Ashraf, I think the AfriForum is taking us for granted as black people. We have suffered enough. And then when someone goes overseas, or Europe, or wherever, or to America, go and tarnish our name and come back here, what does he expect? I think, AfriForum in future, they must think carefully of what they are doing. Thank you very much.
I'm sure they're thinking about it. Whether they're right in what they're thinking is up for debate, isn't it?
Honestly, Ashraf, why are we still giving these non-patriotic, delusional people airtime on our space? I mean, they've proven that they don't have the best interest of this country at heart. Why are we even listening to AfriForum? I mean, they've made their position clear. They must just pack their bags and join their friends in America. Why are we still listening to them? We don't care what they have to say.
So do we ignore the fact that now they've formally instituted a court challenge to the Constitutional Act? Do we just ignore that as a news item? I mean, just think about it. I'm not discussing whether we agree with the merits of their case, but do we just ignore that happening as if we just won't talk about it at all? 4:30, let's get the news headlines.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the presidency has revealed the full delegations who will meet at the White House today in support of President Cyril Ramaphosa and Donald Trump. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has swapped the VAT increase for a hike in the fuel levy. And the World Health Organization has adopted a historic global pandemic agreement in Geneva. The pact is aimed at reforming existing systems for pandemic surveillance, prevention and response. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Kulufelo Defu.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's very busy on a couple of the big commuting routes around Joburg this afternoon. Grayston Drive, leading Sandton, big backlogs from Rivonia Road out towards the Mike 1 Highway, and Winnie Mandela queuing up through Briars to drive across the highway up towards the faulty lights at Leslie. Behind that, the N1 really struggling to get off and turn up into four ways. The N1 queues from the Buccleuch interchange. Still fairly slow both ways into Galulis. That's the N3 south from Alex, and N3 north is the problem inside Galulis with a breakdown as you come off the N3 and turn onto the N12 eastbound, and the roadworks on the R21 north up by the Benoni exit, causing delays if you're leaving the airport towards Pretoria. Crash in Pretoria, Stansville Papi at Kilnerton. That's causing a backlog both directions, going in and out of that Hatfield area. Durban, a bit of a mystery, got to say. Traffic looks good around Durban this afternoon, as clear as I've seen it for some time, with the major exception that the lights are out on the M7 at the N2, so there's some heavy traffic queuing there. Cape Town today, very busy out of the city centre, out N1 towards Kuburg Interchange, inbound to Kuburg Interchange, very busy as well. The run out through Hospital Bend, M2, M3 routes, Philip Kasana and Nelson Mandela, they're heavy. And in between the N1 and the N2, there's a whole pile up of traffic through Woodstock, Salt River and Observatory. That part of Cape Town really busy as well today. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Chimi, the countdown continues. There's a Trump-Ramaphosa big game on, but you have other big games on your mind too.
Yeah, there's a big one this evening, the Europa League final. And Manchester United captain Bruno Fernandes says that winning the Europa League final will make up for United's poor season. The Red Devils face Tottenham Hotspurs and Bilbao, with both clubs looking to make up for a poor domestic campaign.
No, every game that you have a chance to win a trophy is very big. But a part of that, every game at this club is massive. As Harvey just said, this club is so big that from 1 week you can be the hero and the next one you're the villain. So we just play as a players. We just think of what we have ahead of us, and what we have ahead of us is a chance to get our hands on a trophy. It won't change the past. It won't affect what the past has done to us on tomorrow neither. But what can affect is the future, probably, yes. Obviously, winning a competition gives you more, gives a lot of things. In this case, you get a place in the Champions League. It gets a lot of revenue for the club. It gets obviously more players wanting to come to the club. What I think that at this club, it doesn't change much in that aspect, because I think every player wants to play for Man United, and it's a thing that will never change, because the name of this club, it speaks for himself. But the main thing for us is to focus on what we have ahead of us. That is a massive final against a team that we know very well, but in a competition that is very different of the Premier League. So it's going to be a completely different game.
Meanwhile, Tottenham Hotspur captain Son Heung-min says that winning the Europa League would mean a lot for him specifically, especially after spending 10 years at Spurs.
Yeah, it will be very special, and we will be obviously history moments. But I stay here 10 years, and I just wanted to win the trophy, but which is nobody done it, from where I've been here, in a 10 years time. So yeah, tomorrow is gonna be a massive day for the club first of all, and for the boys, and obviously for me as well.
Still staying with football, Mamelodi Sundowns captain Themba Zwane says that he's yet to contemplate retirement after putting pen to paper on a short-term deal at the club. The Brazilians announced earlier this month that the midfielder would be staying on for another year beyond the current season, ending speculation over his future. Now, Zwane had been injured for the most of the campaign, which usually has a negative impact on contract talks. However, Sundowns felt otherwise, and the 35-year-old insists that calling it quits is the furthest thing from his mind.
To be honest, angazibekile isikhathi ukuthi ngizocedana, but as long as I still feel fresh, I still feel fit, I will keep on going. I'll keep on going because to be honest, I still want to win more. I still want to represent the country. So I have to push myself.
In rugby, former Springbok flank Schalk Burger says that Leinster will have to change their player management strategy to lose their chokers tag in the Champions Cup. The Irish Giants have won the tournament 4 times, but their last title came in 2017-18 season. Now, Leinster have prioritized the Champions Cup over the Vodacom EuroC, opting to rest players in the latter tournament ahead of European matches, yet have nothing to show for it in recent seasons. In the meantime, Zane Jordan is set to return to the Rugby World Cup with the Springbok women in a coaching capacity, assisting South Africa's coaching staff as part of World Rugby's Gallagher High Performance Academy program. Jordan joined the Springbok women training camp in Stellenbosch last week as the on-field element of her high performance course kicked in, much to the delight of the former fly half. Then in cricket, England fast bowler Jofra Archer will miss the ODI series against West Indies with a thumb injury. Archer has struggled with injuries throughout his career, including elbow injuries and back issues that sidelined him for long periods. Finally, in boxing, Manny Pacquiao has announced his return to the ring at the age of 46, almost 4 years after his last fight. The Filipino says that he will face WBC welterweight champion Mario Barrios on the 19th of July in Las Vegas, and Pacquiao now is aiming to become boxing's oldest welterweight world champion. And it brings me back to my topic of how sometimes athletes need to know when to just hang up their boots, their boxing gloves and stuff like that. Did he have to come back? But I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Wow. I think the best example of people who stayed on too long was Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
The greatest of all time. And why did he continue after Leon Spinks? After he defeated, I have no idea why. It was just whatever, for the money.
For the love of the sport. Do you think it's for money?
No, it can never be for the love of the sport. Not at the autumn of his career where he was slowing down and he was fighting. Why would he do it?
Money.
And then he gets thumped by Larry Holmes, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. Listen, quick conundrum I have got. So today, I actually go to the 360 paddle launch. Now, this is the Diamond League. So what they've done, they've modeled this thing on the IPL, where you have players that are playing in this league put together by 360, and you have to auction them off. That means you have to bid, right?
Yeah.
But obviously South African players, right?
Nice.
Elite South African paddle players, a bloody new sport. So that's going to happen tonight.
Are you part of the auction?
No.
Just
maybe as a supporter, yeah. So anyway, I'm due to go for that tonight. It starts at 6 o'clock. I'll get there about 6:45. While I'm there, I'll be watching the Ramaphosa-Trump thing. I need to watch it.
Yeah.
Then there's a game at 9 o'clock. This is going to end at 9:30. Yeah. And I want to watch Man United play against Tottenham. So what's your advice?
My advice is do you have your apps on your phone, your SABC
I do.
Plus
Yeah,
apps
I do.
and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So maybe you should look at that
But I'll be
match
distracted
at the same time.
So I'm tempted to leave at 9 o'clock from there so I can get home, but I won't miss half an hour because I'll watch it delay live, which means in that period, no tweets, no WhatsApp messages, nothing. I will not look at it. And I'll start watching, let's say 9:45 live as if it's 9 p.m. That's the plan. That could change. You never know.
Is it? Because you love paddle so much, I thought you'd want to also watch whatever match that is playing at the same time. As long as you have an app on your phone, you can do it simultaneously.
Well, I think the desperation for Man United is bigger than the love for paddle. Work it out, yeah.
I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
We all have dreams. Some people dream to be astronauts, while others want to yell, Vimba, as they chase that elusive shoplifter sprinting out and into Diamond Walk. Others might look at a broomstick and think to themselves that witchcraft might be the way to go. The possibilities are endless. But for Hollywood stars Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, their dreams is to make it big in the English football leagues. Tune into Welcome to Wrexham as the duo aim to turn Wrexham AFC into an underdog story that the world can root for, bringing hope and change to the community. Welcome to Wrexham, Saturdays at 3 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN, OTP feature, and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of CAPTCHA will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
Ultimate Value is opening an account with 34 benefits while getting her a treat. Ultimate Success is getting her the ballet shoes that you promised. With the 2,000 Rand balance booster, Ultimate Goals is living life on your own terms with a credit card with 0 monthly fees. Absa Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rand per month. Apply online now. Your story matters. ABSA, subject to affordability and scoring. T's and C's apply. ABSA is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider.
As a medical doctor, I've dedicated my life to helping others. Being a regular blood donor, I was shocked to learn of my low hemoglobin levels, which prompted further investigations. My diagnosis of myelodysplastic syndrome meant that my only chance of survival would be through a stem cell transplant. Finding a match was easier for me than for most patients. However, not everyone is so lucky. If you are between the ages of 17 and 55 years, register with dkmsafrica.org to become a stem cell donor and give someone out there a lifeline. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's get those numbers ahead of the meeting between Trump and Ramaphosa. Paswane Mpatlele is with me, the senior account manager at Markway Fund Managers. Right, you got local and global news as expected, but interesting thoughts about Southern Sun. Go for it.
Yes, Southern Sun, Ashraf, their year-end results have reflected a position of good recovery in their operations. We're looking at revenue that is up 9%. As the occupancy rate is reflecting, the room occupancy is looking up around 60, and there's room to go further thanks to the Western Cape Gauteng demand recovery. The HEPS has been a profit of the headline earnings per share up 30%, further supported by cost discipline. Shareholders are going to receive a double-digit dividend growth of 25 cents, which is positive. Balance sheet is resilient with net debt down. Stock is up. Good news on the tourism space. Looking into the budget as a whole, it's out. It reflects caution, discipline with focus on fiscal consolidation. Know that, of course, has resulted in social and infrastructure spending cuts, and the Treasury is looking at protecting the debt levels that are expected to increase and peak at 77.4%. And with the budget surplus, investors' confidence remains contained, and now actually waiting out for the US and SA meeting later on. The rand is still holding its ground below 18, which is a good sign. The JSE is trading up 1%, and it's pointing towards what's happening in the global space, where we're seeing rates reinflating and growth reinflating, along with inflation. We've seen inflation is up 2.8% today. Our mining houses were early signs boosting gains. Resources were up 2.1%. Industrials 1%. Financials up 0.4%. Globally, the dollar remains sold or below 109.5, reflecting no recession risks. Oil prices are inflating, reflecting some of this at $66.65 a barrel. And recent Israel might get attacked by Iran, providing some support. Gold eases but still up at $3,312 an ounce. Platinum prices added to the gains, up 1.5% at $1,070 an ounce. U.S. equities opened in the red, led by Dow down 0.9, S&P is down 0.5. Europe indices have continued to still see green. DAX up 0.3% and FTSE up 0.2. Rand remains strength ahead of the meeting. Rand against the dollar is at 17.90. Rand against the euro 20.50, and rand against the pound 24.04.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Paswane. We will certainly connect again tomorrow, right? Right, we're going to get further comments now. We'll get to you just now. I want to hear more what you say, but we'll get responses from Rise Mzansi in a moment. Before that, the ACD MP. We'll talk to Steve Swart right after this.
You are listening to The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, so let's get to the views of the ACDP. Steve Swart with me, the MP there. Steve, good to connect with you as always on the National Pulse.
Yes, good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to your listeners.
Right, just a first 1-line response for you that best describes the budget that was tabled today.
Deeply concerned about the drop in economic growth projections from 1.9% to 1.4%, which will impact job creation and revenue collection.
All right. Was it unexpected for you? Because, of course, there had to be a balancing act. And once we knew that the 0.5% VAT 0.5% VAT increase was not going to happen, something else had to give, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. And so we're grateful that there was no VAT, the VAT increases off the table, obviously, no personal and corporate income tax increases. But, of course, there isn't a slight increase in the fuel levy, which will impact people. And obviously there's still the indirect tax, which is no bracket tax relief for inflation. And the minister indicated if SARS attempts to collect the extra 35 billion from the 150,000 people who are economically active, not paying tax, does not work out, he's going to have to impose some tax reform in the next year. So that is a concern. But obviously from the ACDP's perspective, as we've always said, Ashraf, let's reduce wasteful, unnecessary expenditure. And I'm so pleased that they mentioned ghost workers. How can you have ghost workers in the civil service that are still being paid? Surely that should have been addressed a long time ago. And as you know, Ashraf, we have always said those tens of billions of rands that sit in the overseas bank accounts through state capture and corruption, let's give the asset forfeiture unit and the MPA more money, and they can collect those tens of billions of rands. But we have to spend efficiently and effectively. That's what the minister said. We need to be good stewards. Taxpayers like yourself, like myself, are demanding that every rand that is paid must be spent properly. And of course, the minister said the cost of doing debt now, of reducing debt, of servicing debt, 1.2 billion rand a day, that is unsustainable. So yes, at the end of the day, the ACDP, as you know, is not a member of the GNU, but we are trusting, we'll look carefully at this budget, but it goes a long way to being more acceptable, and I think that it will be passed by all the members of the GNU when it comes to the 31st of July.
Yeah, and it has to be passed by then, according to the Minister of Finance, or if, right? Just your quick thoughts on the fuel levy increase, which has been coming across to many people as a case of that entire increase is a compensation for the lack of the 0.5 percentage point VAT increase. I mean, do you see that in the same vein?
Yes, I think it is. It goes a certain way towards that. And we know there was no increase in the fuel levy previously, in previous tax years, but obviously now there must be some way of balancing that. And it is sad, it's regrettable, but probably necessary. But we still believe that there are other ways to reduce unnecessary expenditure. We do not want and will support any reductions on frontline services, education, on health, fighting crime, and thankfully that hasn't really happened, but we do believe that there are other ways. Let's make sure that we get bang for every buck that is spent. And that, I think, is, as you correctly pointed out, one of the issues. And of course, as I mentioned also, the no tax bracket relief, that has stayed the same. So there's some indirect taxation. Let's trust that next year that SARS collects that extra money, because otherwise we're definitely going to see some more significant increase, whether it is in personal tax, company tax, or even VAT might come back to haunt us, and we wouldn't want to see that. So let's make sure everyone pays their tax so that we can balance the book, but under understanding that we are good stewards with a servant leadership heart, and that we can spend money prudently. And hopefully now, with the GNU, that will happen. And we as opposition will play a very, very important role as builders, but as also as monitoring expenditure by the GNU, because that is a very important role of the opposition.
Okay, let's see what plays out. Incumbents and the opposition down the line. Steve Swan from the ACDP, thank you for your time. We'll get Songezo Zibi right after this.
Marawai, why did you think you could change your tire when you've never even changed a light bulb successfully? Marawai, why not switch to Santam and get 24/7 roadside assistance to get you moving again? Choose the insurer with cover options that suit your needs. Call 0860 444 444 or SMS cover to 36101. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
The Red Devils want to wrap up the season with maximum points at Old Trafford.
Into the box, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And Mason Mount strikes again. Brilliant stuff from Manchester United.
While the Villains want to conclude their good race with a victory.
Rodgers turns and sees a knee ball into an Ollie Watkins, and he's touched it home. Ollie Watkins breaks the record. Number 75 for Watkins.
This is the bottom half versus top half Premier League clash. Catch Manchester United FC versus Aston Villa FC on Sunday 25 May at 4:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Some crimes fade with time, but the truth, it never stays buried. From the makers of critically acclaimed drama comes Unforgotten Season 3. Detectives Cassie Stewart and Sunny Khan return to unravel another cold case. A missing boy, a hidden body, and secrets that refuse to die. When the past resurfaces, lives will change forever. Unforgotten Season 3, Monday to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Because justice has no expiration date.
We plan for vacations, retirement, and even tonight's dinner. But do we plan for our health? It's how we protect our family's future. So who are you staying healthy for? And how can you protect their future? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that helps you live a healthier, more rewarding life with health checks and extra rewards. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guardrisk Life, a licensed life insurer FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's get another view, then I'll get yours with Songezo Zibi, the leader of Rise Mzansi. Songezo, I appreciate your time as always. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and thanks very much for having me on.
Much appreciated. Right now, your party were one of the parties that in that initial period when things just faltered, were able to thresh out a deal with the minister, with government to say, hold it, we have another way around it if you don't increase the 0.5 percentage point VAT. What then are your thoughts now with the third iteration now being delivered?
Ashraf, look, it was always going to be a really difficult balancing act because the global environment has shifted, especially with President Trump in the US and the tariffs that he has imposed on each and every country. That has caused for the economic growth outlook for South Africa to be lower than it was in February and March, which means SARS is going to collect less money than we anticipated. That has eroded, at least from our perspective, the between 42 and 60 billion rand that we thought could be collected in addition to what was anticipated, which means we have ended up with this budget that we have right now. But having said that, the consultations by the finance minister with all the political parties in the GNU at least, I've had several conversations with him, have been meaningful, they've been serious, and I believe that this budget will pass when the time to vote for it comes next month.
Okay. There's also been clearly from an opposition point of view, from the MK party being outrightly clear that this was a complete disaster, calling for the ministers to be censored, to the EFF saying it's an austerity budget that does not help our cause one bit. Where do you see the silver linings here in a country that so desperately needs growth?
You know, Ashraf, in February, the EFF in particular, and in fact in March in particular, the EFF criticized us because Rise Mzansi's position was there are so many people that need an extension of critical services. Because if you look at the Department of Health, for instance, it only spends 5% of its budget on extending critical medical or health services to South Africans. The Department of Education, 4%. People in Soweto wait up to an hour, 15 minutes for a train. There are not enough trains, they are too slow, and so on. So there was a long shopping list of things that we felt the government must spend on to make the lives of South Africans better and to invest in infrastructure to make the economy better. As recently as yesterday, the EFF marched in Pretoria to say no more tax increases. In plain English, don't give the finance minister any more money. Today, they are saying it's an austerity budget, when they have been campaigning all along for the additional allocation to the budget to be reduced. That's hypocrisy. That's assuming South Africans are stupid. The reality is that what we have to do is to strike a balance between raising revenue so that we can fund the things that we want to do on the one hand, on the other having a responsible financial management strategy, and finally to do what the finance minister said we must all do, eliminate waste and corruption in government so that we can stretch every rand. You don't hear these political parties talking about that. They come on radio, say it's a disaster, it doesn't work, come up with zero solutions.
All right. Now, I think the issue of eliminating waste and corruption-related waste, I think is a given. As we all know, it doesn't happen in one day, right? Therefore, all things considered regarding this delicate balance of the budget, right? What for you has been the shining light? What stands for you? Stands up for you to say, hold it, he's got this remarkably right in spite of the difficulties?
Look, the argument was always about how much we are going to add to last year's budget. He proposed 253 billion. In March, that fell down to 232 billion. It's now less than 200 billion, right? However, the budget is still increasing compared to last year. Somebody who's taking a train from Naledi to Park Station won't have to wait 75 minutes anymore. Within a year to a year and a bit, they'll be waiting only 15 minutes. That's a massive improvement. We will still employ those doctors that are unemployed. We will prevent teachers from being retrenched and so on. So there are some things that are good about this budget, even though it's a really difficult budget, actually. It is truly a difficult budget. And we must now start making tough choices so that we can direct more money towards creating jobs in the economy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe end with that. This could be the first conversation of many as we have down the line, right? In terms of the tough choices, therefore, right? So we're not asking the minister, we're asking you, what for you, if you had the chance to craft these tough choices that would get your most urgent attention, that is not just inflammatory, as you may have suggested earlier, but can be practically effected as soon as possible?
The minister, in our consultation, by the way, we spoke about several, but he mentioned two today. The first one is that we must review government programs that are not yielding results. Things that we're spending money on, but it's not yielding the desired result. That's a big one because it means some of these government policy priorities that don't yield any results, we are going to have to do them differently. People have spoken about the sector education and training authorities, which benefit from the skills levy. We need to review those and see whether that money is producing the kind of skills that get South Africans employed. That's a big one. The second one, and I hope people noticed it, Ashraf, and we discussed it, repurpose the 35 billion rand SRD grant towards job-creating programs. He said it today. Over 3 years, Ashraf, it's 105 billion, a historic investment in creating jobs. If we take those kind of decisions, we can get more South Africans employed. Instead of shouting on the street and saying this doesn't work, that doesn't work, without offering a solution.
Okay, let's leave it at that in terms of taking those decisions and practically implementing it to make sure it does work. Songezo Zibi, for now, thanks for your time, leader of Rise Mzansi. It means we've got some time as we get to the news to get your thoughts. And naturally, there are so many different conversations about some of the biggest issues that we've covered. Here's one.
Yeah, Ashraf, I agree with you. It's money. There's nothing to do with sports. Who does he owe Manny Pacquiao to come back and fight at the age of 46? Who does he owe that much money? Because clearly he was going to make a lot of money in boxing than politics, that what he's doing now. Who does he owe money? Like Buffon, when he was still playing football at the age of 100. I didn't know why that guy was still playing. They owe people money.
And he was still saving goals at the age of 100. Somehow or the other it works, right? Just some further thoughts on the Minister of Finance.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Mcete here in Kala. Ashraf, we've been expecting this pandering statement by the minister when addressing the budget. This prejudice of not cutting the uncalled for and unnecessary expenditure in that parliament on using fiscal. They persevere on taxing citizens to fix their misuse of public purse. For example, those fancy parties when one individual in budget speech, Sona speech, and many more. Why this country is in this mess. Thanks, Ashraf. Mcete here.
Well, thanks for that. Well, there you are. That's another opinion. We'll get as many as we can just now. Let me tell you as well, the plan is to somehow take that first meeting of Ramaphosa and Trump live at about 5:30. I understand they're going to meet for a few minutes. Then they're going to go into a closed meeting over supper or lunch, lunch more than supper. And then they'll have a briefing, which I think is open to the public, approximately on 7:45 hour time. All of that to come. Let's get more about it with, we're going to chat to Sophie Mokoena about that, right? But first things first, let's get the news with Greg House.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the top stories, the SAWA delegations revealed ahead of the White House meeting a newborn babies kidnapped from Gqeberha Hospital found. Good afternoon, I'm Kolofelo Defo. The presidency has revealed the full delegations who will meet at the White House today in support of President Cyril Ramaphosa and Donald Trump. They include cabinet ministers Ronald Lamola, Parks Tau, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni and John Steenhuisen. On the U.S. side is Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landu and White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles will be present. Shaun Bryce Peace reports.
In support of President Ramaphosa's delegation, some big names in golf and business with close ties to the US president. Ernie Els, Retief Goosen, Richemont founder and Remgro chair Johan Rupert, Vice President of Business Unity South Africa and Group CEO at Discovery Adrian Gore, and COSATU President Zinki Swalosi. Supporting President Trump's team will be the South African-born Elon Musk in his capacity as a special government employee representing the Department of Government Efficiency, and Dr. Masad Boulos, a senior advisor on Africa and the Middle East.
Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has swapped the VAT increase for a hike in the fuel levy. Presenting his budget before Parliament in Cape Town, Godongwana says the fuel levy will be increased for the first time in 4 years by 16 cents per litre for petrol and 15 cents per litre for diesel. In March, Godongwana's budget was rejected by political parties including the DA and EFF due to disagreements over the proposed VAT hike. Minister Godongwana says the latest increase in the fuel levy is necessary to increase revenue.
To this end, the budget proposes an inflation-linked increase to the general fuel levy. For the 2025-26 fiscal year, this will new tax proposal that I'm announcing. This is the first fuel levy increase in 3 years. It means from the 4th of June this year, the general fuel levy will increase by 16 cents per litre and 15 cents per litre of diesel. Unfortunately, this tax measure alone will not close the fiscal gap over the medium term. The 2026 budget will therefore need to propose new tax measures aimed at raising 20 billion rand.
Meanwhile, apartheid activist and clergyman Alan Boesak has blamed the current government for what he calls an austerity budget. He formed part of a media briefing addressed by leaders from organized labor and community-based organizations ahead of the budget speech. They voiced concerns about the prospect of deepening austerity measures. Dr. Boesak says economically, the majority of South Africans are still living under a form of apartheid.
We have this budget because we have this government. We have this economic policy because we have this government. And if it was clear to us 30 and 50 years ago that apartheid could not be reformed as they tried, but it had to be completely and irrevocably eradicated, then it is clear to us today that for white people and privileged people, post-1994 is not a problem. It is apartheid, but without the guilt.
The two premature babies who were stolen from Dorangiza Hospital in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape have been found. According to the Provincial Health Department, the 2- and 4-day-old babies were abducted last night. 2 women gained access to maternity ward under false pretenses, with one of them leaving with the babies in a suitcase. Provincial Health Department spokesperson Sizwe Kupelo says police are investigating the matter.
MEC for Health, Mr. Nugazi Chapa, wishes to thank everyone who was involved in the search and congratulates the swift action by South African Police Services. Internal investigations surrounding the abduction of these babies will continue, and the department will now respect the ongoing investigations that would be conducted by the police.
And finally, further afield, many healthcare practitioners around the world have welcomed the World Health Organization's adoption of an historic global pandemic agreement in Geneva. This comes amid widespread criticism of the reactions of many governments to the pandemic and the lack of coordination in fighting COVID. WHO head Tedros Ghebreyesus says the agreement will rank among the significant achievements in the history of the organization. Kaelihle Khumalo has more.
The World Health Organization says the new agreement seeks to promote research and equitable sharing pandemic-related products, adjust the production and improve the global public health governance system. The WHO boss, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, says this culminates more than 3 years of talks launched by governments in response to the devastating impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and driven by the goal of making the world safe and more equitable in response to future pandemics. Meanwhile, China will provide an additional $500 million to the WHO over the next 5 years.
The top story this hour, the presidency has revealed the full delegations who will meet at the White House today in support of Presidents Cyril Ramaphosa and Donald Trump. Headlines at 5:30 for SFM News. I'm Kolofelo Defo.
In sports this hour, Europa League showdown takes centre stage tonight. Archer out of ODI series with a thumb injury, and Pacquiao announces boxing return. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
If you're in Pretoria, Hatfield area, very heavy today. A crash on Stanza-Bo Papi at Kilnerton. That's causing big delays through Hatfield. Inbound and outbound sides are both affected through. There's also some pressure on the N14 just south of Eupheus Road going in and out of Pretoria. That's looking quite slow today. Joburg, Grayston Drive from Rivonia out towards the Mike 1 Highway. That's literally starting that run out of Sandton. Very heavy. And some queues on the N1 south towards Soweto. Backlogging from 14th Avenue down to about the main Reef Road Bridge today. Crossing to Durban, no traffic lights. M7 at the N2. It's quite slow going out from Rossborough, coming down from Queensborough. Pretty busy both ways. Bit of traffic on the N3 between Sherwood and Spaghetti Junction. Outbound, inbound from Pavilion to the Spaghetti Junction. Quite slow. And Cape Town, very heavy on your way out of town. Tell you why. It's been a big crash on the N1 inbound at Brackenfell Boulevard. So coming into Cape Town from Justenburg, the N1 to that scene's very heavy. And because it's on the right side, everybody going out in the big volume N1's having a look at it. So from the city centre all the way to Brackenfell, traffic all the way today. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
Some crimes fade with time, but the truth, it never stays buried. From the makers of critically acclaimed drama comes Unforgotten Season 3. Detectives Cassie Stewart and Sunny Khan return to unravel another cold case. A missing boy, a hidden body, and secrets that refuse to die. When the past resurfaces, lives will change forever. Unforgotten Season 3, Monday to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Because justice has no expiration date.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve. Proudly brought to you by Volvo. It's safe to be brave with Volvo.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and stories that shape the continent. Join us as we celebrate African pride, unity, and progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So in terms of today's scrum, because I've absolutely called it that, Ramaphosa versus Trump, right? This is the plan, my understanding. 5:30 our time, in 20 minutes' time, they will meet up in full glare of the public. That means 4 cameras, like a meet and greet. Hello, how are you? That type of thing, right? Which hopefully we will take live, right? Then after that meet and greet, they will then break away for an hour or so for a working meal, and that really is the heart of all that's going to be discussed and negotiated. So from 6:45 to 7:15, and thereafter they would then have face the media at the White House, and I don't know how long that's going to take, but that would be very, very interesting, because that will reflect on the outcomes of what was discussed internally, and then they will explain some of that, well, hopefully all of it, externally. So that is what I understand. We should be chatting to Sophie Mokoena as well to give us her thoughts on who's actually going to attend, because there have been some changes, I understand, but it does mean that I can talk to you as well. So let's get your thoughts. You can call in live, by the way. Quick calls are welcome. 0614104107 via WhatsApp, text or voice note to call in live. 086 000 2032. Just what are you thinking about right now? 20 minutes to Trump versus Ramaphosa. What are you thinking? Someone says, don't even say versus. Come on, just say Trump and Ramaphosa. But either way, what are you thinking?
Ashraf, I think you guys, when you interview this green guy, you don't ask the relevant questions. He says South Africa should not be involved in international politics. But they went and discussed our things with the president from another country who's busy spreading lies about our country, who has never been here without any facts because of them. Come on, ask these guys relevant questions, guys, please.
Well, maybe, time is always an issue. The key part there was about the Expropriation Act, which is what we discussed. But you may have heard at the back end of that conversation about stay out of international issues, I actually referenced the USA and South Africa, and South Africa and Israel and Palestine. So hopefully you picked up on that right at the very end. Here's another comment.
Hi, Ashraf. So let's follow these double standards quickly, right? So politicians can't go around shouting land expropriation without compensation, because nobody is going to care to unpack the Constitution. But they can go around shouting 150 or whatever it is race-based laws. Even then, nobody will care to unpack the Constitution. And the USA can get involved in international affairs like now, interfering in South Africa. But South Africa cannot have a geopolitical view if it's going to upset whoever. So is that what it is? All right. Okay. Anonymous, Cape Town.
Well, I mean, that's precisely what he said at the back end of that. And the point made that even the Americans interfering in our politics is exactly that, international relations issues that they may be interfering in. So I think point taken. Right. Let's get another thoughts on the issue of Zongezo and the tax issues. Yeah.
Hey, SAFM, raising taxes and austerity budgets are a sign of a lack of creativity. And Zongezo is the one that thinks South Africans are stupid. They are in government and they are failing to grow the economy. Grow the economy and let people work, then you'll have money. What they are doing is just lack of creativity and laziness, including himself, Zongezo. Thanks, Sibongi here.
Okay, thanks for that, Sibongi. But as he says, it's rather complicated, so let's see. I mean, that's the opening salvo, the first expression of the GNU in some form or the other. Clearly, you're not happy with it. What about the others?
Afternoon. What a day, what a show. I guess that we have to thank Johan Rupert for creating such a platform for Ramaphosa to engage with his counterpart, Donald Trump. Even though we don't know the outcome, but for the mere fact that our true president, Mr. Johan Rupert, because he's the one who made Ramaphosa what it is today. So thank you, Mr. President Johan Rupert, the true president of South Africa.
Oh my!
My respect.
Our true president. There's been lots of stories that Johan Rupert, well, he's going to be part of the delegation today, but that he was the one that set up the meeting itself. There's been lots of that. There's also been the other talk. You're talking about the true president. At some stage or the other, there's a lobby for Patrice Motsepe at some stage. Another wealthy man to run the country. So maybe that's the route we're going to go, isn't it? But you say our true president. I wonder who else agrees with that, right? Let's get to some calls now. Impo in Randfontein, go for it.
No, thank you very much. I think your interview earlier on with the CEO of AfriForum.
Yeah.
I do think they are still hell-bent to discredit, or I think there's no commitment to transformation altogether. In one way, they are saying let's all have equal access, equal country, or where we can stay together. But I think they still want to maintain and protect apartheid privileges at all costs. So, I mean, the law says there's no way you can take the land without giving people what they perhaps deserve. But you continue to argue that no. There is no way they must go to court. But so there's no commitment to this country. And that's why they have the boldness to go to America and discredit this country at the expense of selfish.
Well, I got that. I think many people believe so, and certainly they are very happy, drawing on the USA, and effectively they haven't really countered the bad mouthing of South Africa by Donald Trump on a one-on-one basis. They haven't done that. I don't think so, not at all. So you may well wonder what then is their ultimate agenda. So point taken, Impo in Randfontein. By the way, right, let me get a few more. We should be chatting to Sophie McQueen. It's probably a busy time for her. As soon as we can, we will get to her. Here's another comment.
Hi, Ashraf. 1.4 trillion rands sitting somewhere, doing nothing. Not know where to invest that money. But people are complaining about money now. While money is sitting there doing nothing. Lungile Matomane, it's all.
Thanks for that, Lungile. Now, just to give you an update in terms of what we know. So at 5:30 our time, in 10, 12 minutes time, right, President Trump will receive President Ramaphosa. And my understanding is, and this could change, is this could be in public view. We should be able to see all of that, right? But like it's, friendly greetings of sort. Then at 5:45, they have this working lunch with the president, which will be off camera, which really is the root or the nub of what they're going to be talking about. At 6:45, South African time, this bilateral meeting between Ramaphosa and Trump, and that we understand will be in the full glare of the media. So let's see how that plays out. Now, there's been some questions about who's in and who's out in terms of the South African side. This is what was given to us today, right? From a South African point, of course, it's Ramaphosa. We know that. Then the Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola. The Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni. The Minister of Trade and Industry, Parks Tau. Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen. And then this is the interesting ones. The South African golfer, one of the leading golfers in the world in his time, Ernie Els. The founder of Richemont and chairman of Remgro, Johan Rupert, as someone said earlier, that's the real president. Another golfer, another big major winner, Retief Goosen, as well, in that grouping. Then, in terms of support, Business Unity South Africa, the Vice President, Adrian Gore, remember, founder of Discovery. The Congress of South African Trade Unions President, Singizwe Losi, also in Washington to provide strategic support. What's missing here, just for now, right, would be that person that should be our ambassador. He certainly was on that list earlier on, but I don't see that list now, and I'm not too sure why. It's something I probably would want to get some clarity on as soon as we can, right? But that is my understanding. Right, let's get further comments from you, which we'll do right after this.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
No matter our abilities, we can all play together.
It's always time to play on Takalani Sesame.
Wow! I love this game! Learning new things is the best part about having a friend who knows something you don't know.
Oh, yay!
We are all special in our own way.
Tune in to see what makes you special for the all-new episodes of Takalani Sesame. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on SABC2.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve. Proudly brought to you by Volvo. It's safe to be brave with Volvo.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, there's a good chance that we may chop and change the remaining part of the show for obvious reasons because of what may and may not happen out at the White House, right? Babit Singh in the Northern Cape, go for it. Babit Singh, hello. Yeah, maybe there, maybe not there. Let's see if we can just reconnect in a moment. But there's further comments about Donald Trump. Let's get that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I hope for some reason Trump can open with the pala right in front of the cameras. Let's see how this one will answer.
Clearly you are. What's that? You're teasing him. You're guaraing him. But no guara. I don't think that's going to happen. Not at all, right? Interesting. I understand that Donald Trump requested that Retief Wilson and Ernie Els be part of the delegation. Now, that's an interesting one because they are chommies. They are South Africans. They are chommies. I can't see them bad-mouthing South Africa. In a negotiation, you want as many allies on both sides, isn't it? So that could be the common ground. Think about it. I'm talking purely practical. Leave aside the ideological issues. Lloyd in Sandton, hello.
Hello, and hello, South Africa.
Yeah, hi.
I just hope that Donald Trump can really make an example of our president because I personally believe that our president is doing a terrible job. If you talk about education, if you talk about healthcare, if you talk about crime, it's just terrible. So if I would see a good leader, I would like to see Donald Trump make an example of our president.
But why would you? So you're supportive of Donald Trump's actions in general?
No, not necessarily.
Then why would you use him? Then why would you want
So-
him to make an example of your president? I mean, seriously.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for asking because he is a bit of a hot-headed guy. You know, he says what he feels. He says whatever he thinks. And for a lot of people, he speaks the truth. So that's what I would like to see.
But which truth is he? He speaks his mind. Yes, Lloyd.
He speaks his
does,
mind.
Does he always speak
and
the truth?
I think, well, obviously, we know he has Elon Musk on his side telling him things about South Africa. But whether those things are true or not, we don't know.
But you just said he speaks the truth. You get my point.
I would like to see Donald Trump speak to Ramaphosa about education, healthcare, crime.
Okay, I somehow doubt they're going to get that far. I think they'll talk in broad strokes, but there's some key fundamental issues around the economy, around AGOA, or replacing that, around South Africa's domestic policy, around the Expropriation Act. There's got to be the issue of the Israel-Palestine issue that may come up, right? Let's get another call. Birwa in Sekhukhune. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Ashraf.
Much appreciated, yeah.
Just to make a clear comment from the latter speaker, who just mentioned that the President Trump will make a clear example of Ramaphosa. And I think that is very naive. I don't want to use a strong word like stupid. How would you like someone to disrespect your leader, no matter how you disagree with that person? You want that person to be insulted.
Well, I'm on your side on this thing. I mean, why would you want to get Trump to come and scold us? Can't we do it ourselves in Parliament and outside? We do it ourselves anyway.
Yes, that's
maybe
what
us.
I wanted to
Yeah.
I just wanted to call you for that.
Okay.
But look, from the word go, President Ramaphosa is an absolute leader. No matter what they say, from the beginning, even if those Rupert and others were not aligned to him, there was no way that Trump could have treated Ramaphosa bad.
Okay.
Because South African was sovereign. There is nothing that we owe the Americans.
Okay, but let's see what's going to happen now. We don't really know, right? So the next 2 hours or so will tell us so much. Labir, I'm going to leave it at that because we are in anticipation of them coming out at the White House to meet and greet for the first greeting. And to me, we're going to talk sport before the news because things are quite dramatic today. So we'll do that right after this.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Chumi, you are competing with Donald Trump versus Cyril Ramaphosa. Go for it.
Literally. Well, so as we know, this season's Europa League finalists, Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United, have both had dismal seasons on the domestic front. Yet lifting the trophy in the Spanish city of Bilbao this evening could completely change the mood at either Premier League club going into the next season. It's just 90 minutes at least that could potentially transform how their 2024-25 campaign is remembered. And the big question is, which manager needs it more? Is it Ruben Amorim of Manchester United?
Oh, I don't know. I know that in this kind of club, also in Tottenham, but especially Manchester United, is strange because you have some coaches that loses some games and they are sacked. It's hard to explain. I think people see what we are trying to do. I think people see that sometimes I'm thinking more in the club than in myself. People understand, especially the board, understand that we had a lot of issues that in the context is really hard. So I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to explain how the fans like me in this moment. So it's hard to explain. I will try to prove myself.
Or on the other hand, is it Ange Postecoglou of Spurs?
My future is a short. Wouldn't be the first person who changes jobs, mate. We all change jobs. I'm sure you've had more than one job. My future's assured. I've got a beautiful family. I've got a great life. I'll keep on winning trophies till I finish, wherever that is. So don't worry about my future, mate. My future is not entwined with anything. Right? My future is assured, provided, God willing, my health remains and my beautiful family is beside me and my friends. There's nothing wrong with my future, mate. Don't.
So one side for Amorim, there are no short-term concerns over his future, but even he has admitted that if he doesn't win today, it won't last for long, while on Postecoglou's side, it's known that success, even in the Europa League final, may not be enough to save his job, but it would do no harm in setting up a potential new chapter for him elsewhere. So may the best man win today. Elsewhere, Real Madrid and England midfielder Jude Bellingham is expected to miss at least the first 6 weeks of next season, where he's going to have a shoulder surgery after the Club World Cup. The 21-year-old has struggled with a persistent shoulder problem since 2023, and Real have scheduled the operation for when the tournament in the United States is over. In motorsport, McLaren has revealed a retro livery enhancement that will run at the next two races in Monaco and Spain. Now, the team said that the new look is based on the McLaren M78, the first McLaren to win the Formula One race in 1968. In tennis, 24-time Grand Slam winner Novak Djokovic says that he will continue to play without a coach after recently parting ways with Andy Murray. The high-profile partnership with three-time Grand Slam champion Murray lasted only 6 months, but Djokovic said that his respect for the Scot had only grown over time. In cricket, England fast bowler Jofra Archer will miss the ODI series against West Indies with a thumb injury, and Archer has struggled with injuries throughout his career, including elbow injuries and back issues that sidelined him for long periods. And finally, in boxing, Manny Pacquiao has announced that he's going to return to the ring at the age of 46, almost 4 years after his last fight, and the Filipino said that he will face WBC welterweight champion Mario Barrios on the 19th of July in Las Vegas. So right now, he's aiming to become boxing's oldest welterweight world champion. So, Ashraf, before I say goodbye, which manager deserves it more today?
I don't believe in any of that nonsense about who deserves it. I just think both teams are there to win. No team wants to lose anything, even a friendly match, right?
Yeah.
And it's what they do right on the day, in the moment, that gets them the trophy. It's not like because one team deserves it more, they're going to get it. I don't really believe in that sentiment. But I do think it's critically important to Manchester United to win. Not that they deserve to win for the future of their club going forward. But in terms of who deserves it, really, I really don't like that sentiment. It's almost like the sentiment that we had the other day about Kaiser Mataung. Remember, win it for Kaiser. No. Win it because you Chiefs.
But
Just
I'm not
win
saying
it.
who deserves it more. I said who needs it more.
Well, who needs it more is definitely, I would say, Manchester United, because they have higher
Of course
aspirations.
you say Man United.
No, because they have higher aspirations. Something we spoke about the other day, just now, that they are a much bigger club globally than Tottenham. So for them to even play in the Europa League, as their coach has said, actually is rather embarrassing. They shouldn't even be there. They need to get out of jail quickly, and this gives them a get out of jail card ASAP if they can.
We'll have to wait and see who's going to win tonight. Ke Natume Nkgapele, Modimo ke yo.
There we are. And just to tell you, we could have a quick news headline. All eyes on the White House. There's a whole South African media contingent all in expectation of what's going to happen imminently. Here's the news headlines.
Well, indeed, Ashraf, and on that, President Cyril Ramaphosa is this evening South African time holding talks at the White House with U.S. President Donald Trump. Ramaphosa goes into his meeting with Trump bearing offers of trade deals and investment opportunities. Some motorists in Kimberley say they are unhappy with the fuel levy increase announced in the budget and which is expected to be effected from next month. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana retabled the 2025 national budget after two earlier failed attempts. And further afield, new figures show tropical forests were lost at record levels last year. The World Resources Institute says deforestation almost doubled as many regions across the world struggled to control outbreaks of fire. Details at the top of the hour.
From the shows that bring us laughter to the moments that inspire us, your SABC TV license makes it all possible. Every license paid supports local stories, top talent, and the programs that unite South Africa. Pay your TV license today. Visit tvlic.co.za or your nearest retail outlet. Hashtag your screen, your story. Together, we make it happen.
You are listening to Night Talk.
Taxi violence in South Africa has a long history. Why has violence and the taxi industry in South Africa become so inextricably tied?
And it's a problem that has been happening, at least since the late 80s when the industry was still regulated. And in actual fact, I would like to just regard it as an industry that has deep historical roots in terms of the violence, dates back to the apartheid era, and also one of the things that I've recognized through my research over the years is actually what I call the state's failure to integrate the industry into the formal transport system, which continues to operate under stiff competition between taxi associations.
Dr. Siyabulela Fobosi, who's a senior researcher at Fort Hare University.
Night Talk, Monday to Thursdays, 10 to midnight. SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
We start just south of Pretoria with quite a big backlog on the N14. There's been a collision between Snake Valley and Eupheus Road. If you're coming out of Pretoria or you're heading up from Jean Avenue into Pretoria, there's some quite heavy delays going on there. Still with that crash in Pretoria on Stadsmopapi at Kilnerton. Very heavy backlogs through the Hatfield area. And if you're on the N1 south onto the N14, it's quite slow, queuing up through John Foster, through Brockfontein on your way onto the Krugersdorp Highway. N1 from Buccleuch out towards the William Mandela off-ramp is slow. William Mandela, of course, all jammed because of the four-ways traffic light problems there again today. And the R21 North queuing up towards the roadworks by the Benoni exit, causing a delay as you leave the airport area. Traffic back through to Pomona. Durban, no traffic lights. M7 at the N2. Driving in from Queens was quite slow. The N3 from Pavilion through to Spaghetti Junction looking pretty busy. And Cape Town, heavy delays on the N1 today. It's a crash coming inbound near Brackenfell Boulevard, so very slow into that from Justenburg. But of course, the high volume outbound side having a look, so really you'll pick up traffic from about Woodstock, just out of the city centre, all the way out to Brackenfell. The R300 north from Van Riebeeck Road up to get into that N1 outbound, fairly heavily packed as well. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
All right, we're a couple of minutes, beyond the 7:30, 5:30 South African time that they were due to meet. Lots of conversations about who knows what. Now, we understand that Mcebisi Jonas, the presidential envoy to the USA, is not part of the grouping. And again, it's not confirmed. But what we understand is that the story is that Trump and his advisors were not happy to meet up with Jonas. I'm not saying it's true. That's what I've heard. A lot of it will be explained, I think, as soon as we know. And the plan is to cross to them shortly. It's not quite happening now. It means I will be able to take some more calls about your thoughts on some of the biggest issues, including Donald Trump.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I hope for some reason Trump can open with the Phala Phala right in front of the cameras. Let's see how this one will answer.
Okay, we've certainly touched on that. Interesting outside the Trump story is a story about the cabinet.
Ashraf, good afternoon. The minister and the president, they should look in cutting the cabinet in order for us to save money. We have cabinet, bloated cabinet, with ministers that we don't know what they are doing there. Some of the department has 2 deputy ministers for no reason. So I believe for them to reduce this cost, they need to reduce the cabinet. Now everything, it has come to hit us back hard in our pockets as taxpayers because of this bloated cabinet. They must reduce that cabinet. Thank you, Ashraf.
I think we all agree. In fact, even Ramaphosa initially made the commitment to do just that they increased the cabinet when they had the GNU. And I can't see that's going to happen in the short term because they have to find a seat at the table for all those different political parties. I'm not saying I agree. I'm saying that's the reality.
Hi, good afternoon, Asha. A nice show. Yeah, we need that money from Jacob Zuma, who built Nkandla by 3.4 million. He must bring it back to help South Africans suffering here. Hallelujah.
Thank you. I don't know when last I heard that phrase, bring back the money. Remember that, bring back the money, and who started it? The world has changed, and it changes so often. Right, here's another comment on some of the thoughts about the MK party initially.
Hi, this MK guy seems to think that the louder he shouts, the more logic and the more valid his point is. I understand that the 16 cents is not ideal, but really it's better than a VAT increase. And the people with the big fancy cars that consume huge amounts of petrol will be paying the highest price, not the poor.
Well, point made. And that was the initial chat we had just after 3. And I did think that yes, there was a lot of sort of screaming from his side, and it doesn't really mean it does mean you can't get the message across, can you? Peter in Freiburg, hi.
Sure. Good evening. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good indeed. Eye on the White House. It's not quite happening as yet, but I'm well. Go for it.
Look, I don't know why people like to make fun of themselves. They say they are making fun of the president. Why will you, a head of state, someone comes out in the public saying that he wants to see Ramaphosa being made fun of? I mean, this is unacceptable. Does it mean that if that person is a leader and someone makes fun of him, how will you feel? Instead of people to talk about how we can be able to solve the relationship between the South Africa and all over the world, the mistake they have made. You know, the problem we have is that this issue of South African government taking Israel to court, that is where the whole problem comes in. And some of these things we as Christians in South Africa, we should try as much as possible to be praying for our government. Instead of praying for our government, we are busy making fun of the government. And things are getting mixed up almost every day, which is very wrong, Ashraf, my brother.
Okay,
we should be careful before they come out to the public.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, when people say Trump is always right, I mean, they say he's always got a viewpoint, agree, but to say he's always right is just quite remarkable. When many Americans will disagree with that statement. So, how do we get to that conclusion, right? Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Peter. I can tell you now, certainly, there's some activity. We don't see the big two at the moment. Let's see if we can do a quick crossing to Jimmy Moyara, who hosts the SAFM Market Update. Jimmy, we may catch you anytime, and you appreciate that. What's on the show today anyway?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. I'm watching the live coverage of the White House as well, so if we do need to cut the crossing, we will definitely do that. We might have to also cut a bit of our show as well to cross directly live to Washington to make sure that we get all of that coverage. But on the show today, we are discussing all things budget. We're going to be reflecting on everything that's been said from a budget perspective. I've got conversations with the chief economist at Investec, Annabelle Bishop. I've got conversations with independent analyst Kaya Sotole. I'm in conversation with the commissioner at the South African Revenue Services, Edward Kieswetter. There were some pronouncements made towards SARS and the allocations towards SARS as well, so we're going to be reflecting on that as well. Let's see if I can give you a quick summary of the movements throughout the day. The Rand has been doing quite well, sitting currently at about 17.89. I saw it as low as 17.85 while the speech was being delivered, but I also saw it as high as 17.94 around about that time as well. So it's been quite a volatile time for the Rand just in today's movements. Commodities prices are all in the green on the day. Brent crude is up off of those tensions from Israel and Iran that were announced a little earlier. You spoke about those, so we won't touch on that in a bit of detail, but I'll look at that in our show as well if we have time. The local markets closed in the green, with the all-share up 0.2%, the top 40 up 0.7%, the resources leading the charge up about 2% there. Financials up only about 0.1%, and when we look at the Rand against other major currencies, it is weaker against the euro and against the British pound, and even against the Australian dollar, really only strengthening against the Rand at the moment. And as I say that, I still don't see anyone out there on the White House lawns, so I can give you a quick update on the other international markets. The US markets are a bit of a mixed bag at the moment. The Nasdaq up only about 0.1%, with the S&P down about 0.25%. So we'll see how these movements continue to unfold as the announcements are made, as the meeting gets underway, and if we can bring you some live coverage from that meeting, we'll certainly do that. If we can bring you some reactions around that, we'll do that as well. But for now, Ashraf, back to you.
Thanks for that, and no interruptions to that. I'm certainly looking at the communications of the head of digital communications in the presidency, Ati Kheleba, and she made the point that, once they're there, so they could well be just out of camera, but they can't sort of enter until they get the actual go-ahead from the White House in terms of they'll advise when the president is ready to receive the president. So doesn't mean they're not around, although we're like 10 minutes or so late anyway, but that could happen ASAP. I also understand that he'll be signing, Ramaphosa will be signing the book, the White House book. So the initial meeting that we may see will be 5 minutes, then signing of this book, visitor's book, and then they break away into that very, very private session. All of that, some or the other, is going to happen very, very soon. In the meantime, it gives me a chance to get to your thoughts as well. There's a comment on the fuel issue.
Evening, Asphalt. It's Desi here from Palm Beach. Okay, my problem with the government right now is that we all know that fuel is the driver of the economy, but no one is trying to lessen the cost of fuel, but they are trying to raise it. And with it being raised, it's gonna drive the cost of everything up. So basically, we are going to be more poor than we are. So our government is really failing us, really failing us.
Thank you. I'm looking at possibilities as we move ahead. Thanks for that one about the fuel story and the government failing us. I'm just looking, I understand that Donald Trump had, and this is all speculation, had requested that Retief Goosen and Ernie Els, the golfer, because he plays golf for them, needed to be part of the conversation, so we then agree with that. Then we understand, and this is all speculation, that Mcebisi Jonas is not part of it because Trump had voiced his displeasure at him being there, and we agree to that. Now, if that's the case, that is quite remarkable. What it tells you, then my analogy of the scrum is exactly what it's going to be. It's a scrum, not like a friendly chat. There's attrition, isn't it? I mean, all will be answered soon, but if they make calls, say, we don't want this person there, what do you do? Just for example, just imagine now if Naledi Pandor was still the Minister of International Relations and she would then be the head of Ronald Lamola. Can you imagine if Trump said, I don't want to talk to her? And would say, okay, we hear you. That would be something.
Radio St. Fellows FM listeners, good evening. My name is Tulani Nzima Croydon. Ashraf, I think the impact of the fuel levy, this is just nothing but economics and politicians being economical with the truth. We would have removed VAT. However, something as a very important increase, which is the fuel levy. Who does it affect? It affects each and every product, because diesel is used in manufacturing most of the products. Fuel is used in transporting most of the products that we have on our day-to-day basis. Therefore, this will have a direct impact on our inflation, which has already increased from 2.7 to 2.8. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I think you're right. You know, I also expected a sideways shift because they can't find money from elsewhere. They can't borrow more money than they've already borrowed, and the economy doesn't bring in more money in terms of revenue and therefore taxes. So somehow or the other, there has to be a sideways shift to just appease one part and then just shift it around the other way. And you're quite right about the fuel levy. It does affect every one of us.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm Bafana Kumalo in Member. I believe that an increase in the fuel levy is also going to directly lead to an increase in foodstuffs.
Well, you believe right. Why would it not be right, isn't it? The question is, where do we get the meaningful growth that creates the jobs, that gets the economy ticking, that ensure we can move from a thriving, because not many people are talking about the downward aspirations in terms of growth. It's been brought down a peg or two from a low growth forecast anyway.
Ashraf, that guy from the African Forum is annoying. I mean, she is telling us that, I mean, the property should be protected. He doesn't say that to whom did he buy that property, because that was a stolen property. The fact of the matter is that they stole property from our grandfathers and mothers. So how can they say they own legitimate right to those properties? So expropriation should be implemented as it is. They should take responsibility for the fact that their forefathers bought stolen properties. That is it. If you buy a stolen car, you should know that you are also guilty because you buy an illegally acquired property. So thank you, Ashraf.
Thank you. Well, I mean, clearly AfriForum and yourself don't process things the same way, neither do I, isn't it? Clearly they see things very, very differently. Faith saying, Ashraf, Jonas has not presented his credentials and is therefore not the ambassador but special envoy. In fact, we do say he's a special envoy. Get that, Faith. But that doesn't mean he shouldn't be there, because if Ernie else can be there, why can't Jonas be there? I mean, seriously. Surely you can bring who you want, can't you? I mean, just think about it. Here's another.
This is Johnny Mahala calling out of Kabarga. I do not appreciate the light, casual, and frankly slightly drunken tone taken by the Minister of Finance, the casual nature with which he refers to colleagues, especially Mantashe. This is not a matter for amusement. So I hope, Ashraf, that you'll play this. This is a source of great annoyance, the smugness, the casual nature with which this man presented himself. Do it before lunch. Launch the budget before lunch. They clearly have had too much to drink. It's embarrassing. And it's painful. We do not deserve this type of service.
We have played it. Are you on the pulse? I didn't hear the entire thing. I wonder if others have seen that in terms of the tone of the Minister of Finance and references to Mantashe and others, but like, as you're saying, very, very playful and, you know, almost humor, just too much humor and comedy, which was disrespectful. Anybody else?
Ashraf Gada, hi. I think, to be honest, we are worse off than the 0.5% of the increase in VAT, considering now the items that were going to be zero rated on the basic food basket. The zero rate now is scrapped, so they are subject to VAT. Also, us who've got vehicles, even those who don't have vehicles, once the fuel goes up, everything goes up. Thanks, Ashraf. Yalezo in Mtata.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm amazed so little has been spoken about just that some some of the issues that were zero rated have been scrapped. And that has a huge impact, because, I mean, what is zero rated? Those things that affect the most vulnerable in our country, isn't it?
Ashraf has been Modley of the MK party should have told his leader, Jacob Zuma, not to trample all over our toes. He's talking about the holes in a bucket. Those holes were caused by Jacob Zuma. Now he's complaining and trying to put some wool over our eyes and say there's money going through those holes caused by Jacob Zuma. Matebang, thank you.
Okay, well, there we are. Jacob Zuma suddenly gets a mention a couple of times today. Right, let me just tell you, so there's still nothing happening. But clearly the arrival of South Africa's delegation is imminent at the White House. I'm really uncertain what the deal is, accepting what has been told to us that, they may well be there, but the reality is they then have to wait in for the president or the White House to actually say, okay, you can, you knock on the door, you can come in. So that may happen very, very soon, and hopefully we'll get a bit of that before they break up for their working lunch and before we end this show. But either way, as has been said, that issue certainly later on the media coverage will be covered in terms of facing the media in one of the shows here on SAFM. Right, it means that we have more time to get your calls, which we'll do right after this.
We all have an enemy.
Not me.
Oh, please. Trust me, you do. Some are vocal about it. I mean, they don't shy away from it. Open hatred. Well, at least they're honest about it. Then you get our Satan. Oh, they will hate you in the shadows. Consult the Magoya of Baloi. Maybe an Nkabi for you here and there. Trash your name until it can't even be recycled. Tune into My Secret Enemy and get a front row seat to some of the most spine-chilling stories in the Hall of Betrayal. My Secret Enemy, Mondays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The Morning Brief.
What's the ultimate deadline to which we can hold you directly accountable? All of Hammanskraal doesn't have water by this date, XYZ of this year.
As much as the mayor, I want to say by December. So the September deadline, remember we're already 3 months behind schedule, and this is a contractor that gets paid. So they must be performance managed as a contractor. But for me, as the mayor of residents that don't have clean water in their taps, by December, and this is now, if worst case scenario, by December 2025, when those families have Christmas lunches, they must be able to get clean and drinkable water from their taps.
That's Dr. Nasiphi Moya, the executive mayor of the city of Tshwane.
Tulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
So as it stands, we know that Mcebisi Jonas, not part of the delegation in terms of actually fronting up today, may have been part of the consultation. That's what we know in terms of the list given to us. But we'll find it all out shortly. We do know that Ernie Els is there. We do know that Retief Goosen is there. And then, there's been this talk about Elon Musk sort of being retired from politics. But there's been also talk that he may well form part of the American side of the delegation. All that will be revealed soon. Right, more time for me to talk to you about, well, here's one, Trump and Ernie, the golfers.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Hope you're well. I think the reason why Donald Trump chose Retief Goosen and Ernie Els is because he has a rapport with them because they're golfers, firstly. And secondly, he obviously believes that they are men of integrity and they have no connection to politics. So whatever they say to him, or advice they give him, or whatever the case may be, will be the truth and honest. No hidden agendas. And, it's actually quite ironic that Julius slates Rupert for being there and everything, but Rupert employs probably 1 or 2% of the population of this country. What has Julius done for this country? And he's obviously totally jealous of that fact. Mark from Cape Town.
Well, thanks for that, Mark. Interesting one. I'm actually supportive, by the way, of Ernie Els and Retief Goosen being part of any delegation, even if they're invited by Donald Trump. It's like, when there's adversaries, family adversaries, bring as many people together who are common to both so that actually they can act as this unifying force. So that's fantastic, I think, right? And we know they're chummies. We know they're golf mates. We know that. And lots of other things, perhaps. So there's nothing wrong with that, is it? Let's see how it plays out, of course, right? Here's a question, Loeto saying, are you broadcasting the Oval Office event the evening for those who will be driving? Well, look, that's the plan. I think, as you may have heard Jimmy say, That show from 6 to 7, which is the business show, they may take parts of it depending again of the adjustments being made at the moment. We clearly are waiting what should have happened at 5:30 South African time for the initial meet and greet for about 10 minutes. Has not quite happened because the plan was 10 minutes of meet and greet. Then they break away at like 5:45 to this South African time, that is to this working lunch. So we are now 25 minutes beyond that time set. But to answer your question, yes. And then there'll be this media briefing, which was originally set for 6:45. That could well be delayed by an hour or at least 30 minutes now, right? That one there, I'm pretty certain that we will cover it here on SAFM. It is that important, right?
Mr. Ashraf, evening. Tired of these politicians that always refer to us as poor people, not doing anything with the situation. It's like they are also making joke of us. Hey, I think I could take the Sambok and go to the parliament, because they always talking, cheap talking. Thanks, Mr. Ashraf.
Hey, you know that, don't say Mr. just Ashraf, but by the way, that image of a Sambok, oh my goodness. I think we all can identify what the Sambok, or what that means in South African culture, isn't it?
Hi, Ashraf. Retief Goosen and Ernie Els are gone to meet Trump because Trump has several luxury resorts and golf courses that he's involved in. And in fact, he's building a new golf course or resort where apparently the membership will be $500,000 a year. So he needs those golfers to help him design those courses and endorse those courses, and that's why they are there.
But I don't know if that's where he's meeting them. I mean, they obviously can meet every other day of the week. I mean, bottom line to it, the fact that he's meeting, that they're part of a delegation, that's an interesting one.
Hi, Ashraf. This is Sabata from Durban. And the listeners as well. Hi. Ashraf, so what if the meeting was organized by if it was organized by Johan Rupert, which is not, it was organized by NAS. But even if it was, Johan Rupert is part of the delegation, and NAS and another golfer, I can't remember his name. So what? They have South Africa's interest at heart. Otherwise, they wouldn't have organized that meeting if they didn't have South Africa's interest at heart. Come on, man. So we tend to criticize everything unnecessary. So,
well, I don't know about we. I think some people do. We are still waiting, and it's not happening, but it could well happen imminently or just as soon as we go off air. That's the nature of things, isn't it?
Hey, good afternoon, Ashraf and all SAFM listeners. Well. It's quite interesting, because Elon Musk, was quite influential, in the leadership, in the administration of Trump. And what we are seeing is the same as South African government. Mr. Rupert, quite influential on Ramaphosa. Quite ironic, isn't it? That's Andile from Stegspruit in the Eastern Cape near to borders.
Thanks, Andile. Do you think it's the same level of influence? Excepting, I think Trump with Musk, it was very upfront. Meaning, when I say upfront, he was the official advisor through every single tweet he's made. I mean, clearly, that has been something else.
Patrick here in Kuruman. That budget speech, man. Hey, that guy. I think something was wrong with him today, man. He was just off in terms of pronunciations and Aibo.
Okay, well, there's another person confirming what was said earlier on, that the delivery of the budget speech, not the content, was rather off.
But Ashraf, you know that when petrol goes up, everything will go up. The price of food will go up. That will also affect the poor. That's just logical. He just looked for a tax that's hidden that people won't see immediately, but that will definitely affect the poor.
Wow, I think we all concur. Let me play the last soundbite I can play, and it refers to the Minister of Finance.
Hi there, Ashraf. I do agree with the previous guy that said that
the Minister of Finance sounded a bit drunk. Actually, listening to him, he did sound a bit off balance, kept getting some words incorrect, and very, very unusual for someone of high caliber delivering such an important speech to sound like the way that Godongwana was sounding. He sounded off balance there, David from Soweto.
Thanks, David. And the word you used is off balance. Okay, we certainly going to be off air now, which means any chance of us taking in part of the Trump versus Ramaphosa meeting, the scrum live, is not going to happen. Not with this show, but it's obviously going to happen with the shows that follow up this show. So thank you for listening. We certainly had to make a plan to adjust things as and when they happen in terms of anticipation of what could have happened. It didn't quite happen, but the good news, we got to hear your thoughts ahead of their meeting, which will happen ASAP. One way or the other, that we know is going to happen. Thanks for listening. Let's get the news. Here's Kholofelo Tefo.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories this hour. Pretoria and White House meeting gets underway and 2 Gqeberha women arrested for kidnapping newborns. Good evening.